Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We came for one man, forget my peace. You take the west, I'll take on the east. I'ma put them in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Man so tough, but mans keep walking. Yeah, just too sharp with the prize. White girls, let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
See, was that so hard, Righteous Gemstones? Just open with Baby Billy, and 5 minutes in, he's angry with his dick out. That's how you do it. I don't need a war scene. I don't need Bradley Cooper. I need jetpacks and...
Spoiler alert.
That's going to become a meme.
Yes.
That is...
It's also SpaceX's tagline.
White Lotus has a controversy because Jason Isaacs is running around saying that there's a double standard and he's not answering any more questions about his penis, and because he's been accused of it being a prosthetic. The full frontal remains funny. Forgetting Sarah Marshall, great movie, funny movie. That's the scene I remember. I don't know why it is that McBride likes it so much, but I think that's the reason, because you just can't lose with it. But it's still rare, is it not? How often do you act? You got 2 shows on Max doing this, and White Lotus is in the middle of something of a controversy over it. But it's still a rare thing, right? I remember on network television, NYPD Blue, when it was a big deal that Sipowicz showed his ass on network television. And now we're starting the second episode of the 4th season of Righteous Gemstones, last season of Righteous Gemstones. And Goggins has gone from, I don't know, when did you guys discover him? Because I remember him beginning his career with The Shield. And he was, and I don't, that's the first time I noticed him. His character was very good, but weak. And so to watch his acting evolution to, the comedic, Baby Billy is one of the best characters I've ever seen on television. Like, it's legitimately funny every time he's there. And it's just amazing to see his acting range go from what it was in The Shield. None of you guys watched The Shield, right?
No, I watched it.
I know that you were always like really big on The Shield. I'm getting to it.
Oh, what?
Around to it.
Okay.
Justified. He was in Hateful Eight. Those were all 2010s movies and shows, though. The Shield was way back in the day, Dan. I never watched The Shield.
Shield was groundbreaking television, and it was dirty and grittier than most. It was dangerous for its time because it was pushing boundaries. But when I ask you about the full frontal stuff, it's unusual to see it. Correct? Like, it's
I don't think so anymore. The HBO has really, in the last 5 years, I would say. I mean, even the last season of Righteous Gemstones that came out over a year ago, it's been a lot of penises. Yeah.
This is McBride.
It doesn't shock me at all anymore.
It still makes me laugh every time. And
it's still funny. I agree with you on that.
An enraged Baby Billy taking no inventory. Like, where you can put those scenes to be funny is something that I'm constantly laughing at, regardless.
So laugh riot and Nosferatu, let me tell you.
Let me ask you something. At what age did you decide not to use first names anymore? Goggins?
No, I've done.
McBride.
Well, first of all, I've started getting them wrong around here so often for 5 years.
You're not supposed to call attention to that.
Yeah. But I've always done. But I've done that
because he's technically right, and it's a smart thing to do.
Yeah. Well, my father called Larinaga Larry last night. Kept calling him Larry, and I'm aging poorly when it comes to remembering names in general. There's just some stuff that gets kicked out of the data bank, and that is one of them. Also, baseball managers are another one.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just not paying any more attention to those.
Smart thing to do.
But when it comes to getting names, you guys have made fun of me about this for 20 years because I do this. I will call my friends by just their last name. You guys think that's weird? Like it's something I've done since I was in my 20s.
I think friends, it's normal.
Yeah, it's no. Yeah,
When you're just talking about random people you don't know, sometimes just the last name's a little odd.
I spit that at Larinaga last night, right? I didn't call him Jim. I just kept calling him Larinaga.
Coach.
It is unclear, Mike Ryan. I don't know if you'll be disappointed by this. Can you guys get me the sound from last night? It is unclear. The group seemed to delight in wanting to ask Jim Larinaga if he knew or liked you. And when I say the room seemed...
I heard about that.
Well, when I say the room seemed to delight in it, I could only tell from over here because I couldn't hear what they were doing, but all of them were wanting to figure out how to ask Larinaga the question, and then Billy eventually asked him, and Billy claimed afterward that he was forced to do it because no one else wanted to do it, but everybody wanted to do it. And so was it clear to you? I said it wasn't clear whether he knew you or not. The group says it is clear that he doesn't know you.
I don't really know Jim all that much. I've been in places with him, but I haven't had a long conversation with him.
There's the problem.
That's why he's gone.
Well, but
They weren't very good this year.
I thought as one of the big boosters at the University of Miami and one of the influential voices on behalf of the University of Miami that, of course, he would know who you were.
I mean, I don't know. I've had small talk with Jim Larinaga, but yeah, he wasn't super engaged with certain.
He was a
folks in
dick,
the
just
collective.
saying. That's why he's gone. It's fine.
It really seems like they have to pry a lot out of you, Billy.
I'm just trying to
I know
not
how
mince
this one
words
goes.
here.
It's Billy's idea. Then he wants someone else to do
Falsehoods.
it. And then he's like, all right, I'll do it.
Falsehoods.
Is that why you didn't come last night? You didn't want to do it?
No, I didn't come. It was Pennzoil 400.
The players.
The players. And Indian Wells. And Stars Abs.
The players got suspended at 1 p.m. yesterday.
Players is going on right now. We got a 3-hole playoff. 3 holes for Rory
That's not
to
why
choke.
you didn't come.
Free golf.
You're going to be fixated here. Is he? This is we're in the middle of it right now. It is golf live, and what we're going to watch these 3 holes together.
Well, I mean, you can watch it with me if you'd like, but I got an eye towards this. Yeah, we got 3. It's a back 3, right? It's a final 3 holes, so that means the Island Green's gonna rear its ugly head.
But you're
here.
watching this for Rory to fall apart. That's the reason you're watching.
I also have a bet on Spawn.
I mean, we're watching because it's the players.
Yeah, players.
You guys enjoy saying that. Larinaga, let's play that sound here real quick and see, because I would just expect Jim Larinaga as the pillar of a coach for the University of Miami to know one of his biggest media supporters.
Coach, when a player comes up to you and they says they want more money, do you call Mike Ryan directly, or how does that work? How do you get more money for the players?
Do I call who?
They want to know if Mike Ryan is somebody that you like or know. Mike Ryan, who's on our show, who is one of your biggest boosters.
It's at home, I think.
One of those you know if you see him type guys, probably.
So is he a booster? Can I get some money from him for NIL?
You could.
So we're asking.
He's a golden cane, I think. I don't know if that means something.
He told a couple of great stories last night. One of them I've heard before. All of his players coming in after the Final Four, 8 of them saying, "Great season, coach, loved it. I'm going into the transfer portal," that he thought for the first time about leaving the sport right then. But the better story, the more memorable story, is the apocalypse that was his high school diet. 10 Reese's peanut butter cups, 10 of them for lunch every day for 4 years. It is a miracle that man is still standing in front of us. The human body is not meant to eat like that for years. And I got up this morning and asked him a question because I failed to ask it journalistically last night. How do you feel about those now? When's the last time that you ate one? Because I would imagine you'd be disgusted by them. Wouldn't you guys? Wouldn't you imagine that if you put it on the poll at LeBatard Show, if you had Reese's peanut butter cups every day, 10 every day for 4 years, would they disgust you later in life?
Never.
Yes. No. I get sick of anything, dude.
Yes.
Never.
There was one Easter season where I had 1 Reese's egg a day for 2 weeks, and I don't think I've had a Reese's egg since.
Oh.
Is there a food that can break over this barrier that you wouldn't ever get disgusted by? Because I failed to ask him that question. last night. But when I got home, because I was thinking to myself, that seems like after 2 weeks, that would be too decadent for even a child or a teenager to be eating that. To be eating that for 4 years every day for lunch because it cost 50 cents and that's all you had. That seemed to be something that I could go tired of very quickly. But let's play this clip here. And mysteriously, weirdly, I never figured out why this was. The underdogs were still hanging around at various points during this interview.
We're going to save the Coach L clip for the break because it's a long 5-minute clip. So we're not going to play the food one right now.
Okay. All right. Very good. So we've got here, though, the underdogs, guys. I thought it would be funny to open the show today with them still here, just wandering around. We were all confused by why it is that they wouldn't leave, correct?
It was odd, but delightful. They were very helpful. Great info.
But why wouldn't they leave? Go ahead and play the clip.
Let's go to them now. They're actually here.
Oh, they are there. Okay, so forgive me. I thought because it was in the preview and because I didn't realize that they were there.
You thought that was a clip being
yes,
teed up.
I thought
no,
that
that's
was
right
being.
there.
I'm sorry. So now they're back.
No, they've actually never left. Yeah. They've been there. That's a screen that's on all the time for them.
Hey, guys.
Hey,
when's breakfast? We've been waiting. Where's our meal?
Nobody knows who's where. That's why we're still here.
You know, that's a fair point.
The most important part of comedy is the timing.
Did you guys have fun last night? We had fun. Did you have fun on the show?
We had a huge amount. We had fun the whole time. We got to meet Fillerwich too.
That's why we haven't left.
We're still here.
Can you guys explain to us, having because you guys came on with us last night immediately after the tournament, and I was wondering if there was anything in the analysis afterward that you were not prepared to give us at the time.
Ooh, good question. We didn't talk about Colorado State over Memphis, right?
I thought the seeding was pretty good this year, so I have no qualms. Usually I'm boiling mad about something, but if your biggest problem is Colorado State and Memphis,
No, that's we gave our big upsets, but we didn't mention the Rams.
Oh, you mean in terms of who could win?
Yeah. Ram it down their throats.
It seemed
take it by the horns.
It seemed though that the big story of the day, where people are always looking to find some sort of outrage wherever it is that they can find it because we enjoy it so much, it seemed like the big story was that North Carolina made it in and the conspiracy of that.
Yes, and it's like totally tying into the era we're living in where conspiracies are taken as fact. So when Bubba Cunningham says, this is the protocol, I'm not in the room, stuff like this happens every year, you've got 50 articles coming out within 5 minutes. Travesty, North Carolina gets it in, and their AD is to blame. Like, God, are we at the point where we can't take anything at face value anymore?
I think it was cool, though, that he had to explain that he had to duck into the bathroom every time they talked about North Carolina.
By the way, I'm happy for Jalen Withers, who I would not have wanted to be that kid and cost your team an NCAA tournament berth on a lane violation.
Can we play the sound, please, of Bubba Cunningham? It's wonderful to have him actually named Bubba. Can we just play the sound of him saying, I didn't have anything to do with this?
You know, all the policies and procedures were followed, and Keith can address exactly how North Carolina was discussed, because I was not in the room for any of that.
Yeah, thanks, Bubba. And Seth, I appreciate the question. As the vice chair, I managed all the conversations that we had about North Carolina, and we had quite a few. Our policies require the AD of any school to recuse themselves and actually leave the room for those discussions, and they're not allowed to participate in any vote as well. So we follow those, had lots of discussions about North Carolina.
Peter?
I think mathematically that's absurd. All right, I don't indulge in conspiracy theories, but every change to a network of data affects all the members of the network. If you're not talking about North Carolina, you're talking about teams that either played North Carolina or played their opponents or are going to be affected if North Carolina is in or out. So that's kind of a shady remark, I thought.
Shadiness. Look at Jessica, delighted by the shadiness.
Ooh.
I don't know much about Quad 1, but that's bad.
There is some shadiness going on. We do need some form of controversy, right? There aren't 68 teams worthy of this tournament, are there?
What do you think? I think there are at least 64. 64 worked pretty well.
I mean, D1 keeps growing and growing. I don't want to see expansion, but it's inevitable. But these teams are good, man. The 12 seeds, good teams.
But if you're not making this particular tournament, you can't complain very much when they're allowing a team with a 6-12 record in the SEC into the tournament, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. The problem is because of conference expansion, these teams are yes, they're all going to have 6-12 records in the SEC, but they're still better than, anyone outside of the Power 5 pretty much. So expansion is basically taking away your chance to be a solid team in a smaller conference.
I see what you're getting at, but if you really want controversy, you got to get into the women's tournament. That's where the analytics are not fully caught up yet. That's where you have 13 and 14 seeds who are wildly different strengths. That's where you have less consolidation of the greatest teams among, two conferences. That's where the Wild West is now. That's where there's a lot more subjectivity.
Okay, can we talk about this? Because I've seen a lot of college basketball coaches very upset about, South Carolina not upset about being the 1 overall seed with a tougher schedule, even though they lost to UCLA. UCLA with the overall 1 seed with a weaker non-conference schedule. UConn mad because Gino says there's not enough Big East teams in the tournament. There's a lot of upset college basketball coaches who, by the way, these are all like 1 or 2 seeds we're talking about who had South Carolina's got a pretty good setup for making the Final Four here. But what are your thoughts on all of that controversy today?
I think that a lot of teams have a lot of points to make, and they're all talking up because, on the men's side, the metrics and the process are pretty well set. On the women's side, it's a lot more nebulous, and so everybody thinks they have a case to make. I think UConn has a case to make to be number 1, and I think South Carolina, after they got smoked by UConn, then all they did was go out and in turn destroy about 7 of the best teams in the country. I don't know why NC State is a number 2 seed. I can't. They're like the 20th best team in the country, maybe. So there's a lot of weird stuff because there's a lot more wiggle room.
But it's fun because we need more coaches hating each other and who are angry all the time, especially as the older men's coaches have fled the game because of NIL and stuff. So the women are picking up the slack, and I like it.
At 6 p.m. tonight, these 2 guys will be live on DraftKings, and the Underdog's information is better than most you will find anywhere. It's really data-driven. Last question before I let you go. Given what you just said about the women's tournament, is there more betting value over there?
I would think yes, but the thing you have to remember is there's still, we're talking about more parity among the women's teams. It's not really there yet. I mean, there are 20 or 30 teams that are really, really good now. They kind of crush underdogs and they compete among themselves. It's not to the point where there's 40 or 50. The talent isn't as dispersed as we want to think it is yet. The best teams are still so much better than the rest of the field that it's hard to make money betting on underdogs in the women's tournament.
How many of the teams, Jordan, can win the championship in the women's tournament, and how many of the teams can actually win the championship in the men's?
The women's side, Peter, what would you say? Realistic shot about 8? Maybe?
Yeah, I'd say about 8.
And on the men's side, I think you've got a real top 6 and then a drop off. Could a 7 or an 8, a Michigan State, a St. John's win? Yeah, but I think the 4 big SEC teams, Duke and Houston, and there's a drop.
Thank you, gentlemen. I thought that that was all great, but especially the onboarding. I thought that was the best part
really strong.
Of the whole interview. Thank you. I do appreciate that. And I appreciate your time last night as well.
The clip.
Do we have to leave now?
We'll be here whenever you need us. We'll be here whenever you need us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate it. It would be funny if you guys popped out of the sky later as a thread throughout this interview, just giving commentary, because I will explain to the audience what happened there. It was not clear, correct? It was not in any way clear what happened to the audience.
Oh, it was clear that we screwed that up. It was very clear.
Well, I didn't know we were doing that. I had mentioned while I was walking into the studio, it would have been funny if we had thought to do this, is how I thought we were going to do it. If we had thought I didn't think those guys would be immediately available and have them drop out of the sky 10 minutes into the interview.
The player was immediately available yesterday, and we didn't plan that.
Yeah. The player?
That's a good point.
I forgot his name.
Kyler.
Granny, whatever his name is.
35% granny shooter.
That part was funny. You gave me that stat when we were talking to Kyler Filowich. If you weren't on with us yesterday, if you weren't listening, he was shooting 30% from the free throw line, and then they flew in Rick Barry. And I failed to ask the question, and how much did you actually improve? Because during the interview, Chris Cody said to me he's improved from 30 to 35% shooting free throws. That's not much of an improvement to fly Rick Barry in for.
Agreed. And his overall season percentage is lower than 35. He did 30% regular style, and then when he switched to Granny, he's shot 35%. So his season total, I believe, is somewhere in the middle there. But if you break them down just by the types of shots, yes, it's 35% Granny, 30% regular. It's an unbelievably bad both ways.
He's our player, right? He's
ours.
He's our adopted player now
For the first round.
So now we are all in on Wofford.
Sure. Play the clip.
I've been to Spartanburg.
You understand why I said play the clip?
No, I don't understand anything that happened.
Okay,
there.
well, I will explain to you what happened.
We could just move on.
I don't want. You know what? I don't want to. In fact, what is happening right now? What is?
Uh-oh.
All right, he's fired up. I'm sorry. I'm going to give him a pullback.
The metrics support North Carolina being in the tournament. We're number 33 in KenPom. We're number 36 in the net ranking. And even then, we're North Carolina. You're Boise State. That's why we're in the tournament.
Do you believe Bubba wasn't in the room or in the room where it happens?
This guy just
Maybe
came back from
Bubba
New
Cunningham
York.
had something to do with it. Yes, we lost to Kansas. We lost to Michigan State. We lost to Alabama. We're 1-12 against teams in the tournament. But again, Indiana, cry me a river.
Wow.
He's ready for baseball, wearing a Cub shirt.
Cry me a river.
Come back, tell us about Bill Belichick CCing his girlfriend on his emails.
I have a take on this. This is an old person thing. Yeah. Oh. It's an old person thing. Hell, it's not even that much of an old person thing. It's like I'm in a relationship kind of thing, and she handles my entire calendar. Yeah, I've been on emails where Dan's just like, CC Valerie. I've been the person that's been like, just text Cynthia and figure it out. Like, this is just an old person relationship thing. I don't have control of my schedule anymore. I don't have the energy or bandwidth to fight over it because I'm disorganized. Just CC her. My life's a lot easier.
So it's interesting that is the place that you take that particular story. What about this one? Because this picture that we were showing yesterday of Bill Belichick doing yoga on the beach, to me, the thing about that picture is somebody has to be asked to take it, and then it gets dispersed. So there is a decision, right?
That looks like a propped phone just like leaned up
That's on the
against something.
sand.
Yeah, if I had to guess, this is a timer.
Yeah. Okay, so if they're doing it by timer, they're also doing something that they want this out there. And do you think, like, I'd like to know the marketing and business strategy of what is presently happening here. What is going on with what it is that Bill Belichick is trying to do with this portion of his career, where Pablo Torre is reporting that his girlfriend is basically his manager and agent. So there is, and now they're on Hard Knocks, and now the reinvention of a legend begins in his 70s.
They're not on Hard Knocks. They're doing their own thing.
Yeah, that got pulled
It's not Hard Knocks branded, but they're still going to be doing a show that's kind of invasive.
Okay,
like
my point is that
as he doesn't have any practice jersey numbers on, which I know this seems like revolutionary. He did it in New England. Let me just say Randy Shannon did this down here. Wow. It was a disaster. It's terrible for the coaches. They're all wearing helmets. How can you tell?
My question to you guys is, because this is a fairly stunning thing to see, I guess we can normalize it, but it's all fairly stunning to look at the entirety of this story. This is the best football coach there's ever been in America's most popular sport. What just happened on the television?
The Island Green, Dan. The Island Green.
Rory took a one-shot lead on the first playoff hole, and on the second playoff hole, Spawn, who's down a stroke, just hit it in the water. So it's looking good for Rory here to win this.
The players.
What are you smiling about, Roy?
Oh, that Alan Green, man. I get you.
Roy gets it. He gets it.
17 TPC Sawgrass, man.
Not clutch, man.
Legacies are made. The players.
I want to take you through this story because it is fascinating. The coach for our times, the best. Word association, name a great coach. If you're of this generation, last 20 years, Belichick, Saban, those are the top of the list because that's the known sport. He's in his 70s, can't get a job anywhere in professional football. Goes to college and now has his career being helped and aided, old person thing, whatever, by a 24-year-old who loves him.
I'm not getting into that. I
No,
mean,
I'm.
how am I supposed to know?
Okay, but they're okay.
They seem pretty serious, and he seems oddly flexible for his age.
Put a ring on that finger.
It's IG official. Like,
Yeah.
that's not nothing.
Yeah, I'm not. This is somehow more reckless than the LeBron thing. that
What's
you did.
reckless?
Does she love him? I'm not.
No, I
Are
wasn't.
they in love?
It sounded like there was a question in it. It sounded like there's a question mark in it. Whatever.
Then I'm gonna be your friend here. You got some blind spots here, pal. All right, there's some blind spots here. Like Valerie helps you out a ton with stuff. She is your anchor. Like I think that's all that's happening right here. She's his manager. She's his partner, and they're doing partner things.
That is correct. And they're building the business of Bill Belichick back up. And I'd like to explore it as they traffic in not caring whatever is the assessments are from afar. I do not have blind spots here.
She's young. She posts. She's IG. She's that IG age.
I think we're acting like she's using Bill Belichick as if 70-year-old Bill Belichick being with a 29-year-old or whatever is not like he's getting something out of this exchange. I think Bill very well knows what's going on here.
I think he's happy with it. He looks super happy.
Did you see him at the museum?
Yeah.
Check out the post before. Him at a museum is amazing,
And
Mike. You're going to love it.
He's always been lovey-dovey with long-term girlfriends. Like, he's dressed up as pirates. Like, I saw him at, the Gronk Beach House. Like, he loves to have a good time, and he's super public. This is the first time that he's dated. It's the first time he's dated someone that's a little bit more active when it comes to social media posting. But Bill, low-key, has always kind of been like this.
Yeah. This is not, though, the part that I'm interested in. I'm interested in whoever manages and markets the last part of this and however they manage and market it. It's a man who's a legend, whose name has been tarnished so much that his league says, hey, come interview for the Atlanta job 3 times. No, you can't have it. We don't want you. Wants to work in the pros. Says he'll work for any bad team. No is the answer at every stop because of how he's doing it. And then he goes to college, humbled, not employed in the sport that he loves, where he is the legend who was going to get Don Shula's record, most wins ever, and then an Apple docuseries scorches him in 10 episodes because Kraft burns the bridge to whatever that excellence was, and now he has to try and reinvent himself at 70. What an interesting way to do it. What a fascinating way to do it.
But it's also coaching cycles, right? Like, if Bill Belichick would have sat out another year or two, he would have been back in the NFL. That's just kind of how it happens. Like, when Bill Cowher left, everyone was like, Cowher, because he would say no. Like, eventually, just because of the NFL and the fact that they don't really give that many new people opportunities, like, they all eventually get another job. He just got tired of waiting, and he wanted to do this. And, like, it wasn't like he went begging to North Carolina. He found a program that was desperate enough to give him everything that he wanted, and they put him in a position where he couldn't say no because they gave him everything.
May I also just add that I don't find anything remotely new or shocking about an older man having a hot young girlfriend.
To me, the only
thing
interesting
that happens a lot.
To me, the interesting part about this is whether or not it succeeds or fails, or if he even gives it long enough to do that. In college, staffs generally need 3 years to put their program in place. Yeah. He is approaching this differently. In terms of talent acquisition, it hasn't gone the way that most people think it would have gone. It's still super early, and it's hard to judge when a new coach jumps in an offseason like that. But, okay, you think that you're smarter. You think hiring your friends like Lombardi is going to work out for you on this level, and I'm really interested to see if it actually does.
Both the coaching and the relationship, if we're being honest, are probably going to end horribly. Like, this isn't going to go well on either front. But He's having the time of his life now, going to museums. He's
seems
doing the
happy.
beach photo. Like, he seems to be having fun. He's in the Dunkin' commercials. Like, let him have his moment because, like, North Carolina is not going to be a national power. And a 29-year-old is not going to be around Bill Belichick forever. Probably.
He's because he's going to die first, obviously. If that's is that what you're getting at? She could be there for his forever.
I mean, Billy, you were skeptical of their love. I mean,
I'm skeptical of their
You're
love?
just like, she's not going to stay with him.
You just said
Yeah,
that
I'm just saying it's
probably
it's probably not. Well, look, here's the deal, right? When you're like 28, 29, like this is a powerful person, right? But like when you realize that like all of his friends are 70 and you're going to like a 73-year-old's birthday party and you're hanging out with just a bunch of 70-year-olds.
Guys,
after
get in
a while,
for a
like,
selfie.
Yeah, you go and it's like, oh, what are we going to do this weekend? Well, the Lombardis are having us over for a 5:30 dinner. Things are going to get wild.
We're having
it's like,
we're
I
having
don't know
supper.
about it. I want to sign up for this forever, even though forever is not that long.
It's not his network. He goes on the boat. He goes to parties. Like he's a fun guy.
He for sure calls it supper, too.
There's stew involved.
They've been together for a long time. I'm pretty sure like they seem like they really like each other. She's wearing
I
jackets.
hope everyone is having a fun time.
Yeah.
It appears that they are. I see it and I'm like, that's wild. I would have never pictured Bill Belichick doing this because he was Mr. Serious all the time. But then the initial sort of shock wore off and I'm like, cool, they're just in a relationship.
I hope that everyone gets out of this relationship what they're hoping to get out of this relationship. And it's 100% supper and it's 100% soup because the polygrip, not that strong.
Let's not forget, we played videos for years of him jumping off boats. This guy's always liked a good time.
He really has.
The part actually about this that is most interesting to me is that I think most people are coming by Billy's opinion on this is all going to fail as it regards the football. And to me, that part's confusing because you've told me for 25 years that this is a genius that knows more than everyone else. You take Tom Brady from him and all of a sudden it has no values in the amateur ranks. It doesn't have some sort of advantage that they don't have because they're not as professional as him. Why are we spending so much time propping up that Bill Belichick is the reason for winning and then turning around when he goes to North Carolina and saying he will not have any substantive advantages there?
Well, because the way that college athletics works, it's not set up for him to be successful. His success was not just Tom Brady, but it was because he was the dictator of an entire system that he ran in New England where you came in and you knew you were signing up for that system. The way college athletics are now, you just basically have to pay the best 18-year-old, and if they don't like it or if they succeed, they can go to a school that can pay them more than North Carolina can probably pay them with a better pedigree than North Carolina. Or if you sign someone up to be the backup, they can then leave the next year. So, like, it's a different system where Bill Belichick's going to have to change the way that he's done things, and he's going to have to do that now at, like, 72 years old with 18-year-olds who are just looking for more money, and they're not going to buy into the Patriot way, which is what we always talked about, why Bill Belichick was successful, because of this whole system that he set up where the players didn't really have much of a say in anything, and they just had to do whatever he wanted. And that's just not the case of college football right now with NIL money.
Well, also his approach is more of like a development. I'm really good at developing players. Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft pick. I'm going to scout guys. I'm going to have these gems that you find and develop them, but that takes time. Does the oldest coach have time? Does what he brings in with his prestige afford him that kind of time? Does he get bored with it and wants to jump back to the NFL? Or does this experience make him a bigger punchline in the NFL? And he's probably closing those doors that he still seemingly is interested in walking through.
Yeah, there's also questions as to how committed he actually is to this process, right? When we saw like the specifics of, well, he hadn't actually signed his contract yet, and there's outs where it would only cost $1 million if he left for an NFL job before certain dates. Like, maybe Bill Belichick falls in love with being a college coach and he really enjoys North Carolina. You see him at basketball games with recruits. He seems to be buying in, right? But we also don't know how long this experiment is actually going to last.
The part that's just confusing to me is that and those are all reasonable questions. You're just telling me that whatever he's had that is the advantages for 25 years are so worth nothing that you don't think he can even bring what Deion Sanders brought at the beginning, because Deion Sanders came with 2 actual players, and you're telling me Belichick's not even worth that the questions are so strong, and all of that is fair. Everything you've said is fair as a question, but they're so strong that you're willing to turn it into a doubt that will make him an immediate failure, and you're adding to it, I'm not sure he cares that much about this part.
I mean, I didn't go that strong on any of that. I said that it's just assuming that it's going to be a success is not necessarily the case. But, like, there's also a very big difference in Deion Sanders' ability to recruit and Bill Belichick's, right? Like, there's a relatability there that's different. It's not just they were successful at what they did. Like, Bill Belichick was kind of told by the NFL, you don't have it anymore, and we're not going to bring you back, and we're not going to give you, like, you were the greatest coach ever, but also time has passed you by, and we don't know if you can do it without a quarterback because you haven't proven us that you can do it without a quarterback yet. So, like, it's not me saying it. That's, like, the message the NFL delivered to him. What I'm saying is I don't know that what he did successfully in the NFL translates over to present-day college football.
He's going to attempt what the vision, at least for year one, is I have a coaching advantage because I'm the greatest head coach of all time. When the bright lights go on that Monday night against TCU, you know you got the smarter coach on your sideline and certainly the more prestigious one. And I will develop these kids. I mean, if I'm a college football fan, that's all I have to believe in right now for North Carolina because that's all he's shown me. He's not walking in the door with Travis Hunter. And I think that's a little bit of a surprise. But again, he's not from this world. At least Deion was at Jackson State. He knew how to recruit talent. He knew how to walk in the door and with a lot of talent. It's a whole new base level of skill that he's got to learn or at least build a program good enough that it makes it easier for him.
The 18-year-olds he's trying to recruit also, though, like, the last time Bill Belichick was Bill Belichick, they were probably like 10.
I think we could actually make this more fun. Let's just go through a list of the ACC coaches, and we can say which ones we know for a fact Bill Belichick is better than as a coach.
Okay.
Pat Narduzzi. Let's start with the obvious there. Manny Diaz.
He's a better head coach than all of them.
Jessica, no, but
Dave
this is the part that I find funny. Wow. It's
Clausen retired.
Big year for NC State. Wow. I feel like this is finally the make or break year for Doran.
Brent Pry for sure.
Oh, Pry's a good one. I like Pry. I'm a Pry guy. Big Pry guy.
Really?
Yeah. Love Brent Pry.
Is that just because they almost beat Miami?
Well, they own Miami, and whenever he's overmatched, he will design a game plan to actually try to make that a winnable game for Georgia
Speaking
Tech.
of Mario for sure.
Yeah, easily. Well, at least I know Lombardi feels that way.
I'd maybe put Dabo because Dabo's won a couple national championships.
Bill's the best coach in college football in terms of X's and O's.
I'd say Dabo's probably better than Bill right now, but subject to change. All you have to do is win the ACC, Dan, and you get in the playoffs.
Is that all you have to do?
The part that I think is funniest about this is how much of that tactical advantage can anyone listening to this actually quantify? Because we can all think that Belichick will obviously have a coaching advantage over Mario Cristobal, and yet you're telling me that when that produces a result, it's not going to be North Carolina actually being good at football in an enduring way. He's going to go to every one of those games with that kind of tactical advantage, and none of us will have a way of seeing it actually play out in a way that we believe in right now. As we talk about it, you make fun of it, but a guy who's a genius, an alleged genius, is going to come to the sport and not actually have a tactical advantage that matters.
I actually do think it matters. As a fan of a program that is often inside that conference more talented than its opponents, but there's deficiencies at head coach in terms of tactical advantage, we've lost to a ton of opponents over the last 21 years that quantifiably have smarter staffs than Miami have had, and the talent gap. You see the composite recruiting rankings. Miami's only been to Charlotte once in its history since they joined the ACC. So I'm a big believer in that in this conference especially.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York.
I wanted to ask the fans of the champion Florida Panthers in the room a question. 4 unanswered goals allowed against the Islanders. They've lost a few games. They allowed 3 goals in the third period to the Bruins. And I'm here to ask you if you believe vibes and a Marchand haunting have arrived for the Florida Panthers, because Mike Ryan has been worried that trading for this particular man. Roy, you're shaking your head no.
It's the dumbest thing.
Vibes are fine with the Panthers. In Pantherland, we're doing great, Dan.
I don't think it's the dumbest thing. I think injecting Brad Marchand, but he's not really playing. So I don't think that's what's happening. I think what's happening here is Aaron Ekblad, because of performance enhancers, turned into a really good player for Florida. And we've seen these dips in form from Florida this season when Aaron Ekblad is not at his performance-enhancing best. And right now, they miss Aaron Ekblad. And that's what's happening. Also, this is a natural dip in form after they set the world on fire. And, yeah, they've lost 3 out of 4. In the middle of that, they beat Toronto in Toronto, comeback victory in its own right against a team that's in the division right now that's presently chasing them. This is exactly where you want this dip to happen in the season.
Yeah, they just need to cheat a little bit to get good.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. I do get a little angry in the group chat, and this is me like coming out anti-homers. Like, well, yeah, shocking that Aaron Ekblad's out and we suffer, and this is all because Aaron Ekblad's out. But you have to kind of acknowledge that Aaron Ekblad was what you think he is because of clearly performance enhancers.
Could you theoretically schedule it so you only lose one guy on a line at a time with performance-enhancing drug suspensions? So, like, you get, like, a system going where, like, okay, Ekblad's going to be out 20, and then when he comes back, hopefully we don't get caught, but if we get caught, this other guy will be out 20, but Ekblad will be back, and he'll be juicing again, and we'll be fine. And you just kind of, like, start scheduling the cycles possibly. You never want any of your guys to get caught, but if they do, you make sure they're getting caught at different times.
So Marchand will probably be back before the playoffs. That's the expectation. Tkachuk will return with the playoffs. Ekblad's suspension carries him into 2 games into the postseason, and then Ekblad is back. So during the postseason, you're going to have those 3 talents essentially all coming into your lineup around the same time, and you would imagine that the form will be much better when the playoffs roll around for the Florida Panthers.
And added to that is the injury of Dmitry Kulikov, who got hurt in the Islanders game last night, so they went down a defenseman.
But I am shocking because the Panthers, their whole thing is if they have a 2-goal lead, they never lose that game in regulation. And now we've seen it. And you can understand the emotion of the Bruins one, and Florida was just so hot there that it had to give out at a certain time. But the Islanders' loss is pretty troubling. This is a pretty difficult road stretch. Probably the most difficult stretch in their calendar when it comes to travel, quick turnarounds, and you certainly don't want to have a less deeper team for it. But I know I'm the guy that originated the Marchand take. It's something to keep an eye on. But I think this has more to do with Ekblad and the current congestion of their schedule.
I mean, this schedule sucks. I mean, that was the first of 5 back-to-backs for the rest of the season for the Panthers. So, yeah, it's not really good.
There is a chance that Toronto catches
players.
them in this division, despite that result that Florida had directly against Toronto, and that'll make it interesting in the playoffs. Right now, most people have their eye on the Tkachuk brothers potentially playing in the first round. It may not get to that point if the Cats don't win their division.
One of the interesting things about sports that I'm always sort of like, how do we remain consistent on this one, is a title gets vacated in college sports because of some cheating, and it doesn't actually matter. The title was won. We saw it won. Vacating it is not a thing. I don't know who has to cheat on your team in order to stain it in a way that actually stains the championship and makes anyone go back and take away the Marlins championship because Pudge Rodriguez, lost 40 pounds one offseason.
I know what you're doing. We don't know when this happened with Ekblad.
No, you don't know what I'm doing. I'm leading over to the Buffalo Bills, who just now signed 2 free agents. And the first thing that they're doing with those 2 free agents is announcing the apology of they're both out for 6 games for performance enhancers to start their Bills career. One of them on a 1-year deal, one of them on a 3-year deal. The 3-year deal, they were going to take the suspension no matter what and keep the guy. But if they had known the other player was a performance enhancer, they say publicly they never would have given him the contract. And so what I'm asking you is where the entanglements on all these moralities get. When do you start actually using any of this stuff to stain the team accomplishments? Or do you just, when Jessica smears you with Ekblad's a cheater, so when the cheater gets back.
All right, so you went exactly where I thought you were going to go. Ekblad was a different player in the postseason last year than he was this regular season. It was a pretty clear and obvious night and day, to the point that you were asking, man, was he just really, really hurt during the postseason? Last 2 postseasons, Aaron Ekblad hasn't been very good, and he certainly wasn't the player that he was before. This season in particular, it was a revelation. Yeah. I don't know when the sample was. There's that curious Islanders Reddit post that was circulating about someone just posting. I think there's a PED thing going on with the Panthers, and it's going to end up reversing the championship. That's all people have right now. I don't know when their sample was for him to test positive for performance enhancers, but I will say this season he's looked the best he has in several seasons for Florida, and it made all the sense in the world when that press release came through.
I think the simple answer is if you're a fan of the team, when your player gets caught cheating, it's like, oh, my God, why did this happen? And how did this happen the first time he ever tried to cheat? Like, that's so weird. And then if you're not a fan of the team, always dirty, rotten cheaters,
Billy,
and everyone else is cheating.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Dan. It depends on who you are and who the team is. I am completely writing off the Panthers Stanley Cup because they're a bunch of cheaters. And I think America's with me.
What I don't like so much about it is you had those things happen at the same time. You had the Panthers.
I think Canada's with me too.
Canada is definitely with you. You had the Panthers finally taking advantage of the long-term IR that all the teams that they were chasing. Vegas beat them in a Stanley Cup because of it. The Tampa Bay Lightning eliminated them because they took advantage of it. And now all of a sudden Florida's playing that game. Then you bring in Brad Marchand, who leans into everything that they say about the Panthers and Sam Bennett and Tkachuk. And now you don't really have much of a defense because at least you could say, well, we're at least better than Boston. Now we're not. And then you add the Ekblad thing. All these things happened within a couple of days. And so it's kind of like, okay, we're just embracing the dark side here.
Real Panthers fans like me and Mike and Roy and Chris, we kind of look at him like, did Marchand come down and is he like a bad influence on Ekblad? Like, because all of a sudden these things just started happening once he got there. And like, it also makes you wonder, like, we did things the right way the last couple seasons. We overtook the Tampa Bay Lightning. We overtook the Bruins. We beat McOverrated. We did all of that stuff the right, clean way. Why did Aaron have to do this now? Like, is it just to show off for his buddy Brad? Like, what's going on here? You don't know, and it kind of makes it a sad story because, again, all of this happened clean, legitimately on the up and up, and it didn't need to happen this way.
Well, I don't think you have the support of the timeline.
No, yeah.
I don't think that that's how that happened.
No.
I don't think he injected himself in
overnight
the
steroids.
The NHL was like,
well, the thing is,
we got you.
Here's the thing that I'm thinking, just knowing the character of Aaron Ekblad and how he's a good boy and how, again, we did this the right way. I think what happened is maybe this Brad came down here, bad boy Brad, and he wanted to impress bad boy Brad, so he did the steroids, and then he felt so guilty about it that he self-reported to the NHL, and he said, you know what? I did a thing, Commissioner Bettman. I'd like to come clean, and I'm not going to contest this at all. I'm just going to serve my suspension, and that's where we're at right now. And you know what? I think we should all commend Aaron Ekblad for doing the right thing. Thank you, Aaron, for coming clean after you did the wrong thing, self-reporting, and serving the suspension because you were peer pressured by Brad Marchand.
But in this scenario, he didn't do it for the Stanley Cup, so the Stanley Cup is not tainted.
Exactly.
He
That's
just
what I'm
did
saying.
it.
He was like, it went off me, coach, like in that one commercial.
Right. Self-reported.
I think that if the Panthers keep losing, Mike Ryan is going to reinvent his history and claim that Marchand was a haunted spirit who came in and poisoned the vibes. I think he is. You keep shaking your head no, Roy, but look, I don't know.
If this ends badly for the Panthers, Mike's going to say this.
I've
for
laid
sure.
the groundwork.
Oh, for sure.
I don't like this one bit. I don't like it because, what Billy said, outside of it taking a fairly ridiculous turn, was actually true. They felt like the Panthers did this the right way. They didn't take advantage of the long-term IR. They went through these evil, dastardly teams, and now it's just it is a vibe reversal that I'm not necessarily comfortable with. I like the scrappy underdog Florida Panthers that had to go through teams taking advantage of loopholes, and now they've become one.
Yeah. Roy, why are you beaming? Why are you smiling? You're smiling, staring.
Underdog.
We haven't been an underdog in like 4 years.
Look, they're the Florida Panthers. They're a historic underdog. They are a historic underdog.
Plus, they had the misfortune of winning the Biden Cup, which we know historically in hockey is a curse when you have that cup. Like
That's true.
you never go on to win the Stanley Cup. That's not the cup you want.
Every team that Mike likes is an underdog and also morally superior to every team everyone else likes.
And then if something bad happens, like, why did they have to do it? We've done things the right way.
If something bad happens, Mike can say, I knew this bad thing was going to happen, which is why I jumped off this bandwagon like the Terry Rozier, Kyle Lowry Heat bandwagon years ago. Wow. I was right the whole time. Right, Mike?
I don't like this show today.
I'm dying, man.
I'm just not with it so far. And we got a terrible playoff. It looked like I was playing golf in it.
Why are they sitting in a lake?
They're not sitting in a
They're
lake.
just in front of the lake, Billy.
Billy.
Self-reported.
I'm really trying.
It's the island set.
You guys have been very disappointed by the golf. I don't have it on the televisions in here, so
It's over. Rory won. The playoff was +3 to +1. It was just not good. It was just very disappointing. Like, we could have done this last night. We could have done this in the evening. This is stupid.
They should do playoff golf at a putt-putt golf course. That would be so much fun.
There's no way Rory wins that way.
Exactly.
The only way that Rory could... I wanted the drama of Rory
like,
having to
I
make
like
a putt.
Rory.
I like him
Why
too,
does everyone
but
not like
I like
Rory
him.
now?
I like him. But you wanted to see him like make a big putt given his reputation, and Spawn just made it so easy
He
by
handed it
playing
to him.
so poorly that we didn't actually have to see Rory conquer demons at the Players.
Like, the story won't be at all, Rory did it. It's just going to be like, this guy took a big in the playoff.
He did that at 17. I didn't like it. I thought it was a bad omen that he took his pants off and took a at the tee box. That was not good juju.
Might as well.
Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Should they do playoff golf at a putt-putt course? Because that is very well said by you and me, Jessica, in not caring about golf that much. But I am assuming the purists are going to be infuriated by that. They want Rory to majestically rise up today and conquer all of his doubts and not just have the other guy fart away the game.
Guys, have you seen what 17 looks like? That's essentially a mini golf thing. Like, it's a ridiculous hole.
I want all 18 to look like that, though, and then a little, like, a windmill maybe, a fallen over windmill.
What if we do this maybe for one tournament next year, just because there's a new Happy Gilmore coming out? Instead of like a playoff at a putt-putt, you have one natural disaster hole, right? Where you have a regular hole and then you have a collapsible set that just falls all over the green. And then you need to figure out how you play it a la Happy Gilmore.
Are any of your takes going to be rooted in reality?
Soon every hole will be a natural
just like
disaster
any
hole.
of them. Just one of them rooted in reality.
What do you mean?
Self-reported.
I'm trying to get tethered here.
Same. I'm trying to help out Dan. I'm seeing Dan, and Dan's out there, and he's looking for a lifeline, and I'm tossing them to him all day.
You keep tossing me anchors, is what you keep tossing.
There's a line
me.
attached to that anchor, though. Just grab the other end.
I'm sitting there. I'm trying to flail around. I'm trying to grab onto something, and you just keep throwing heavy things at me.
That was a fun ending, though, the Happy Gilmore. Remember? He, like, went off the thing.
Yeah.
Rolled down
Imagine
the
if that's how you settle the players.
Yes, but it's not serious golf analysis.
Okay, do it at the waste management
but
then.
we've got sports happening right now in our face. Like we never have.
I just said a guy pooped on the green. That didn't happen either.
Okay, but metaphorically it happened.
Metaphorically, I'm throwing anchors. I didn't do that either.
Metaphorically, you're pooping.
You're throwing anchors covered in poop at me. Is what you're doing.
There's a lot of animals that live off of eating poop.
Okay,
It's
there's another one.
sustenance. You just need to know which poop to eat.
All right, excellent.
That was actually helpful.
Did you know they drop retired subway carts in New York into the water to become like reefs? Yeah. I learned that while I was in New York over the weekend. Interesting. That's fun.
Isn't there all sorts of stuff in the bottom of the ocean that's just thrown down there that becomes reefs?
Well, this is on purpose.
The
rest of it is just we're just gonna get poisoned by it.
They just drove like last week or 2 weeks ago this giant ship like that they were intentionally sinking to make a giant artificial reef like off the coast of something somewhere. Yeah, it drove by here right down the East Coast.
I wonder
Massive.
if do you think fish get in there? They're like, this is my room. I got this one. Like, that's essentially what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
like dibs.
Yes.
And then a bigger fish
And?
comes. And then a bigger fish comes. And it's like, no, now it's mine.
All right.
Wow. Yesterday's show was so good. It was a top 3 show.
According to
We're
Jason.
tired. You guys, we announced at the very beginning of this that no one had any material left today.
This is the truth. We all got home at like 10 o'clock last night, and then we immediately, at least me, I immediately went to bed and woke up 7 hours later to come in. Yeah. I have not like read anything. I have not watched anything. We emptied it all out yesterday.
I think what could have happened yesterday for Jason also is
Florida
that, well, was Jason here or not? Because there was pizza here, and Jason loves pizza because he does that weird pizza thing where he spins it into a taco, and then he eats it as like a round thing.
Jason doesn't just love pizza. Jason loves every single food we put in this place. No one makes a bigger plate of lunch than Jason, our director.
So if it's a good spread, Jason thinks it's a good show, is the point.
Also, he's a Florida fan, and they're a 1 seed. I think that's why he liked yesterday's show.
Okay, regardless, we don't need to relitigate whether it was or wasn't good. What we can agree on is that so far, today's has not been.
Correct.
So
I'm having a good time.
Full buy-in there.
We're going to get, I've got consensus on that. We're going to get help here from a professional comedian who I'm imagining is feeling a little broken, not just because the road is hard and the grind is hard and he's probably been in 50 hotel rooms in 39 nights, but also because his Knicks aren't quite as lovable as they used to be. And I don't know if you guys saw over the weekend, they lose to the Warriors. The Warriors are now 14-1 with Jimmy Butler. After the game, Karl Anthony Towns had been, punked by Draymond Green, who said that he hadn't played in the previous game against Jimmy Butler because he was afraid of him. He apologized for it because Karl Anthony Towns was attending a friend's funeral. And then what happens after the game, after the Knicks lose, is a bunch of Knicks are dapping up Draymond Green. And now Knicks Nation is hurting because this team is more talented than the team of the last 2 years, but it's not quite as lovable. And it's not quite as underdog either, even though I've gone from thinking they could win the championship to thinking they can't and they won't. So Sam Morril is our senior Knicks correspondent that no one asked for. He's currently on the stand-up tour, the Errors Tour. He's got stops all over the place, U.S. and Canada through May, Columbus, Grand Rapids, Milwaukee, Madison, Des Moines, Kansas City. Go to sammorril.com for dates and tickets. Where are you now? Are you hurting from the night before? Is the road beating you down, or is it the Knicks?
A little bit of both. I've done like 25 cities in the last month and a half or so. So I'm feeling it, but yeah, that game pissed me off, man. That I was a 90s Knicks fan. That's what I grew up with. So that never would have happened with Mason Oak on the team, John Starks. That was a different type of vibe. I think the AAU ball has kind of changed how these guys are, but yeah, I thought Draymond bothers me. And you said he apologized. He didn't apologize. He gave a Draymond apology. He bothers me. The podcast he has bothers me because he brought in Baron Davis to make himself more likable. He's not likable. He's terrible at broadcasting. He lacks charisma. The way Shaq and Barkley ball bust, Draymond can't. He's not able to do that. He's like the kid who thinks he can ball bust, but then says like, your mom has cancer. And you're like, that's not a joke that she actually does have cancer. That's like his sense of humor. He sucks. And you think a guy like this, like, is he a Hall of Famer? Of course. He's a great player. He's a great defender. He's mentally ill. If he was a football player, he'd be Antonio Brown by now. He's unhinged. He has like the ego of like, it's like if Ringo Starr was the biggest in the Beatles, you know? Like, it's weird that Paul, George, and John are nice, and then Ringo's a
I don't think you can just accuse him of being mentally ill. I think that's a bit irresponsible.
Okay, he's got all his marbles. You think he's not mentally ill?
I don't know. I don't know that I'm not comfortable just saying that about somebody. Yeah. Certainly, the resume has a lot of behavior that's unstable on it.
Yeah, I mean, he's just upset that Rudy Gobert, it's not Rudy Gobert's fault. He keeps winning Defensive Player of the Years, and he just like puts him in a sleeper hold. That's not the behavior of someone who's got it all together. It bothered me that the Knicks dapped him up. I think if Jalen Brunson was there, it would have been a different vibe. I didn't like that.
Well, where are you right now emotionally with the Knicks? You don't like them as much as you've liked the team of the last 2 years, right?
It's tough, man. I like the identity last year a little more of just it's hard to root for a team that doesn't play defense as well. Yeah, I miss Dante and Hardenstein and Randall for sure. I mean, Randall would do stuff that would make me crazy, but you couldn't question his toughness, and I respected that. So now you're questioning this team's toughness.
Sam, I have to speak out. There's been something that someone said, and like a game of telephone, it has swept
not right. What
the
you're
entire
about to
production
do is
studio.
not right. You're not. This is not good.
So I just can't unsee it now. Some people have pointed out that your mustache presently looks like the Batman logo. And I gotta say, it is
it's so good.
So bad
It is so good.
It is so dead on. I don't understand. How did you do this on purpose? How do you have the Batman logo on your face?
I don't know, man. I've not heard this, but this is I'm looking at my face, and yeah, I can kind of see it.
Sam, are you okay with us going straight up to your mouth here and just staying here as you give us your commentary with the Batman logo under your nose and above your top lip?
Yeah, as long as you're not doing this to interns in meetings, I guess this is okay.
We're comedians operating in the margins, Sam.
Yeah.
Can someone please, who maybe is watching, Photoshop this into the little spotlight into the sky in Gotham for me? And please tweet it at me. Thank you.
So, Sam, you understand, and this part has to be hard for you as somebody who loves and cares about the Knicks the way you do.
Yeah.
Scrappy underdog, gets very loud, lovable team. Everybody was go New York, go, because it felt scrappy and Jalen Brunson was nice as an underdog. You change everybody out, you bring this team in, it's less liked, and now Knicks fans have been very loud on behalf of their team. And now they've got one that's less likable than the previous incarnations. And a loud fan base goes from hopeful to what? Like, are you sitting here saying, well, now that Mitchell Robinson is back, we can get past Cleveland and Boston?
Well, Boston's tough, man. I mean, they just don't. Al Horford is like the ageless wonder. He's 38, and he just seems like he could still guard anyone. It's crazy. And he hits the open threes. They just don't miss. Boston, so they're tough, man, and Derek White is like that X factor who just, I mean, they have a ton of great players, but he just seems to be that guy who always hits the big three, and Cleveland got better, so yeah, right as of now, no, I don't think we could beat them, but I do think we are in a place where we have more talent. I just think they have to make moves to make the team fit better, you know, like the team doesn't seem like it really fits right now. But also, they haven't really had a lot of time to play with Mitch, Jalen, like the whole team healthy. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Sam, I don't like this. I don't like hearing you. Well, you just don't. You're lacking enthusiasm for your basketball team. You already sound broken. Like for 2 years, you've been like, no, here we come. I'm hopeful. And now you sound like a different human being as our Knicks correspondent.
Are you taking solace in what's happening with Philadelphia? What's happening with Miami? Are you riding some vibes because they're down bad?
I'll tell you what hurts me about Philadelphia is that they got my guy Quentin Grimes, and he's balling. That guy can play, and we knew he could play in New York, and that's a guy we could use right now. A little energy and three ball off the bench, good defender. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't like Philly. It's fun to see them fall apart, but I mean, look, a core of Embiid and Paul George, that contract's like as bad as it gets. So that I do take some solace in them falling apart. But I don't think we're screwed. I think we have a good nucleus still, and I think Brunson is still that good that you could still build around him. But yeah, you just need to get back to that defensive identity. That's what made us good last year, is that we beat you up. So I don't feel like we're a team that teams are scared of like they were last year. Last year they were like, we got to play the Knicks. Like it was that type of thing where you knew they were going to be physical.
Sam, you're basically acknowledging that the team's not good enough, which is not an acknowledgement you've made the last couple of years. You were hopeful at every turn that you could get past even Boston. You were not at that point afraid in any way of Boston.
I never said they're not good enough. I said we don't look good enough right now. I mean, look, if we get healthy, yeah, maybe we could figure something out. I love Deuce off the bench. I love a lot of the guys we have on the team. I mean, OG is looking great right now. Bridges hit that big shot the other. We have the talent. It's just not coming together right now. But we definitely have the talent.
What did you make of Josh Hart and Tom Thibodeau mixing it up? And also, how do we stop the Riddler from poisoning Gotham's water supply?
I can help you with the Rizzler, but I don't know much about the Riddler. But what was the first question again? Sorry.
Josh Hart and Thibodeau. I can understand how that
the clash of Hart and Thibodeau. They're arguing on the sideline.
I don't care about that. That's like they're two intense guys. It's like, they're gonna be fine. It's like when a toxic couple gets together and they scream at each other in public, but then they go home and have hot sex. That's Josh and Tibbs.
Yeah, but then that couple usually breaks up and it's very messy.
Yeah, but that's what always happens. Like Josh's next 5 years are gonna be rough. We know how it is. Like, it didn't end well for Noah or Dang. Tibbs has his guys he loves, and they give everything, and Josh will be a favorite Nick forever. But, I don't know how many years Josh can do this. I mean, he's playing 46 minutes a night and doing everything. It's not like a 46 minutes where he's just, camping out in the corner. He's like the Energizer Bunny the whole night. So I get why he's angry every once in a while. He's doing a lot. And it came out, Bridges was like, what the fuck with all these minutes? And then he's like, no, we're fine. But they're still playing this many minutes. So I don't know.
What are your thoughts on Kendrick Perkins saying that if it were his locker room, he would have smoke with Josh Brunson and Hart? I'm sorry, Brunson and Hart for having their podcast together.
If it was Kendrick Perkins' locker room, he'd have smoked brisket in there because he's fat.
Nothing wrong with that.
He's a fat. It wouldn't be if it was his locker room. I mean, this is a guy that I feel like all his I like Kendrick Perkins, he's fine, but I feel like all his former teammates are like, shut up, The podcast, yeah, look, any podcast you do when it's not going as well, you're gonna get shit for, right? I mean, I remember Duncan Robinson's a buddy of mine. He stopped doing his podcast when he was on the bench because he's like, why am I podcasting if I'm getting benched? Makes sense, right? So when things aren't harmonious, it's weird, but at the same time, they have a self-awareness. I heard them on their podcast talking about how they're not beating the good teams, and it's it's actually nice to hear that they hear the Knicks fans, and there is a weird connection that Josh and Jalen have to Knicks Twitter and the city. So I have no issue with it. It's not like they're not practicing and working hard. Those two are the guys I'm not concerned about.
When you're analyzing the specifics of the changes in the team, because you fell in love with Hartenstein as well, Are you mad at Bridges? Are you mad at Karl Anthony Towns? How does this work in terms of where it is that your emotion is spent? Understanding that you're positive about the team and you don't want to be somebody who's negative, but you blame somebody here for this feeling less good to you, don't you?
Yeah, it's hard to blame the guys who come in. I mean, I think Bridges and Towns are good players. Towns sometimes makes me crazy on defense. I don't always feel like he's playing defense, and that's frustrating because he is a talent. Right now, he looks like he's absolutely injured. So it's hard to get as mad at him right now. But yeah, there have been periods where you're like, it is weird that we have to sit Towns and Brunson on every last play defensively. I get it because Mitch and Deuce are great defenders, but it's weird. You don't usually see that, right? And I think Bridges took a lot of the blame out of the gate because Towns was shooting the lights out, and Towns' first half was incredible. But, we don't care who does that stuff in the regular season. I want to see you do that in the playoffs, and I want to see you hoop in the playoffs. So, yeah, Towns, when he's zesty and we're winning, it's funny. And then when he's zesty and we're losing, we're like, this. Why is he so zesty,
What are you enjoying the most these days creatively? I don't know if sharpening up the tour or your podcast or your script writing is where you're pouring your energies, but what's inspiring you these days?
A lot of Knicks. I'm on the road like crazy. So we've been on a tour bus, and we were on a tour bus for 20 cities. I almost died before we got the tour bus because we were in a Sprinter van at 3 a.m. and our driver fell asleep at the wheel. And that inspired me to get a tour bus. So, yeah, I don't want to die. I was watching that movie, The Substance, and I didn't like it, and it kept me awake. And that's how it saved our life because I was like, wake up, because I was awake.
It seems like you're grinding at a way that's a bit unreasonable. Do your loved ones tell you to slow it down?
No, not really. They just this is how I am, I guess.
Broken.
I saw someone drew a big old on that tour bus. So, congrats.
Someone drew a big. Yeah, that was in I think Buffalo. The Buffalo people, man.
The scarecrow.
I know. It's I will say it is.
Ra's al Ghul, damn you.
I mean, yeah, I like Buffalo people. I went on Tinder there once, and all the women looked like Artie Lang. It was pretty intense, but still one of them. But still,
That's my guy. Wait, no. I want to kill you.
You are going to do something different with the mustache? Do you think self-consciously, or do you think you're going to just keep going and ride it into the sky?
no. I'll ride it through the sky. I'll ride I mean, there's worse things it could look like than a bat signal. I mean, I'll take that. You know, it's kind
No
of
doubt.
Well, I think you should darken it to accentuate it even more, because we have spent the entire conversation giggling or smiling because all of the words are being belched out from the undercarriage of the bat signal.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm all right with it. I'm gonna keep things as is, I think.
All right, Sam, you sound a bit defeated by the Knicks. I don't like to hear you this way.
I'm still positive they have the talent, but I think, yeah, I think you need Brunson back. He's the engine, man. He's everything. So hopefully he comes back healthy. That Lakers game was tough. I thought we'd get him, and then it turns into like, not only do we lose, but Jalen goes down. That was one where I was like, I forgot what city we were in, but it was like not a good. It was a finish the bottle of wine type of night. Where like this.
How do you celebrate, or how did you celebrate Stephen A's big contract with ESPN?
I was so happy for him. I think he's been such a wonderful guy for years and doing it the right way. So it's nice. Hopefully he's our next president too. He seems really level-headed. We'll make Draymond VP.
Good seeing you, Sam. Thank you. Again, a reminder, the Errors Tour, upcoming dates, Columbus, Grand Rapids, Milwaukee, Madison, Des Moines, and Kansas City. His is the bus with the penis drawn on the side. Thank you, sir. I wanted to give you guys here a Rick Pitino stat because I find it fairly stunning, because we were just talking about the Belichick stuff, right? Clearly, there's something Pitino does wherever it is that he goes that is something that evolves into is going to win everywhere. And he's back in the top 10 in the sport. And you have a stat for me with the stat of the day music. Long version? You think long version? Short version.
Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day.
Stat of the day brought to you by NYX Professional Makeup. Shop now at nyxcosmetics.com or a retailer near you. The stat of the day, Rick Pitino, the first coach to take 6 schools to the NCAA tournament.
It's not just that it's 6 schools. Why is he being applauded there? Why is he?
I think it was a perfect read.
He did a good job.
Oh, okay, so yeah.
We
So
just make fun of people too much around here. Why can't we applaud when someone's successful?
I just wanted to know why, because I wasn't used to it.
Golf claps.
Aaron Eckblad of the day, doing the right thing.
I'm not used to the group embracing
Self-reported.
someone else's success.
I ain't cheating.
And Rick Pitino, people rooting for him now, that can't be a thing, right? That's not. Can you turn that down, please? That can't be a thing, right? Where people are rooting for Rick Pitino.
I think so. Yeah. I think he's part of the nostalgia circuit, too. There's a lot of people that maybe, as the game evolved, have aged out of following the sport day to day. But Rick Pitino is like...
I know that guy.
Yeah. And he's doing it with a smaller program, and people just like to either root for brands at this time of year or one of the few recognizable faces. It's such a transient sport.
But it's not aged out, though, of this time of year. It's that the sport has become something different when you have all of the changes to it that you have. And so college basketball becomes something that is focused on intensely in March, as it always has been, but then curates to its fan base the rest of the time. And then this 1 month is an insanity of gambling. And many people are tuning in just to watch their money run up and down the court.
I think, honestly, like, the casual fans need someone like a Pitino, because all of the other coaches that other than, like, maybe Tom Izzo, like, all the other coaches that we grew up watching have now left the sports. We're, like, desperate for, like, a familiar face for the casual fans. And also the fact that he's doing it at St. John's, who has never been good in my lifetime. Like, the last time they made the tournament, or the last time they won the Big East, I think was like 2001, right? Like, it's just crazy.
Mike Jarvis and them boys.
Well, but it's what is crazy is not merely that Rick Pitino is back and in the game as the vampire who never dies over 700 years. It's that he's brought back Big East basketball where we used to remember back when that was a thing, because all the coaches matter, whether it was George Thompson or Carnesecca, any of the, or Massimino, Rolly Massimino, like the ridiculous names from the past. The idea that he's resurrecting that conference when the SEC is all anyone's talking about is crazy. And he'll have a shot at Florida. He'll have a shot if they both make it.
College basketball is a very difficult sport to follow, even if you're a fan of it. And Rick Pitino does numbers. He is often aggregated. The social channels, if you follow all the college basketball sites that you should, and Rick Pitino is probably the person that's pushed out the most. So it's been a connection point for a lot of people throughout this season. One of the few storylines that you can get a grip on. Like I said, if you love college basketball and you have a team that you're following, it's easy to follow your own conference and the teams that you're playing. But there's so many games and so many legitimately good teams. It's not like college football. There's so much wealth distributed that to be locked in on everything this time of year, you have to be an absolute sicko.
Who are the coaches that we're talking about? Kelvin Sampson and them boys, Calipari and them boys, where you're talking about just the coach is the program. The coach is the face because it's a famous coach. How many of those are left from the past? I can't believe
Huggy Bear's gone.
Pitino's still one of them. Bill Self is still wandering around.
It's just a big year for vampires in general.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
I stumbled around a little bit in talking about performance enhancers and that Bill story, but I really did want to explore what I would have to present the public with, a public that in sports has become more informed and more skeptical, I would guess, than any sports fans before it, because of how often your heroes have use the pharmacy to get advantages, and because of how unsurprised we are now that competitive people would be super competitive about competition and look for any advantage. The Bills, who came very close to winning the championship last year, had a team the last 3 or 4 years that if a few bounces go a different way, they could be a championship team, or if the Chiefs don't exist, they might be a championship team. They signed 2 free agents because they need help, because last offseason, Chris Cody was right. The Jets were a betting favorite, according to DraftKings, over the Bills when last season began. And it's because of Aaron Rodgers, and it was because of the Bills had lost some people. So in free agency, they grabbed 2 players, and then they learn one of them, who they would not have signed for a year if they had known this, is going to be out for 6 games. The other one, they do know that he's going to be out for 6 games, but they signed him to a 3-year deal anyway. And my question to the group is, unless that's Josh Allen, do any of you care? Like, can I make it any other Bill from the last 10 years and none of you actually care about whether someone is performance enhancing or not performance enhancing? But if I make it Josh Allen, then you'll be like, because it's not the crime, it's the fame.
Chris has a good one that people would notice.
Damar Hamlin?
I think everybody would understand.
That's how it happened.
Do you understand my larger point? And what do you deal?
Dan, I don't feel like I don't know enough about the kinds of PEDs that these players are using, but it's sort of my understanding that when you stop using them, like they stop doing anything for you, right?
I would
so,
assume did it stick to Von Miller? Because he got pinched for it several years ago. Did that stigma stick around?
I'm just saying you've got to be super famous, and it has nothing to do with the actual cheating.
Von Miller is way more famous than Larry Ogunjobi.
Never stuck with Brian Cushing.
No,
that's not true.
Yes, people would certainly care well more if it was a starting quarterback, especially one with the physical gifts
I think
of
it also depends
Josh Allen.
what it is though, and how long they're using it and that sort of stuff. And I don't know if I know enough about it to really make a judgment call.
Generally, people don't care about NFL PED suspensions. I mean, they care for what it does to betting lines and fantasy football, and I guess the timing of when these things happen also matter.
I feel like if you're a star, though, if Jamar Chase got caught, that would be a news story.
It would, but for the weeks that it doesn't taint his legacy in ways that it does in baseball.
It's just the sport, right? Like in football, no one really seems to care about anything football players do in any aspect of anything.
I'm with you. I think there's just a general understanding. Yeah, that sport's crazier than most. I'm so not surprised that Larry Ogunjobi, who has been in the league forever, has played with so many teams, has found a way to stick through this very difficult position in an alpha male sport by turning to something. It's just not surprising. In fact, my base assumption is that all these guys have to do something, especially the ones that have stayed in the league for so long, to either recoup from injury or try to avoid it.
I'm curious because we talked about this last week, in the NBA, and basically people would care if it's LeBron. If it's not LeBron, people largely don't really care what's going on in the NBA anymore. In baseball, they cared a lot at the beginning, and now you also kind of forget. The only reason you know is because the length of the suspension is so long that it's so obvious, 81 games, you miss half a season. So, but otherwise you kind of forget, this person got suspended 3 seasons ago. I don't even remember that. Football, you never really care because, people are out so frequently in the NFL anyways with injury that you don't really know why someone's not playing. It's PED's and they're back next year. And Pro Bowler? Can we get them now for a cheaper price? Okay, yeah, let's sign up for that. I'm actually curious how the NHL views this, since this is why we started today with Ekblad. Do the NHL fans care about PEDs?
The fan bases do. It's been interesting to see, but I'm also on that algo, so I'm also getting fed more stuff. So I'm not exactly sure if my experience with it is outsized. But the more distance that I get from the Mitchell report and people speaking in front of Congress, those guys in the late 90s, I know that they soared with impunity and made a lot of money because of the drugs that they were turning to, but man, that's looking a little unfair in retrospect.
Rafael Palmeiro.
And it's so good now.
Ridiculous.
It is high comedy now, looking back on it. A congressional hearing where Sammy Sosa's pretending he suddenly doesn't understand or speak English.
That was a waste of money, if we're going to be honest. Crazy waste of money. That was taxpayer money. Was crazy. Roy, I think you're a hockey purist just because I think you're the only person that likes hockey for a long time. How do you feel about the whole steroid stuff in hockey? Do you care about this?
No, I mean, it hasn't really happened that often. I mean, the last time somebody got pinched for PED abuse was Nate Smith, 6 or 7 years ago when he was in Vegas.
So all Panthers.
Oh, was also a Florida Panther.
Really?
I mean, it's awfully convenient for someone that, roots for the Panthers to say, I don't really think about it. It's bothered me, and I'm deducing that it certainly helped him because he's looked like a different player this season.
Well, the thing is, he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, so I don't know how that's going to go into his negotiations with Bill Zito.
Well, also, I'm is there, Roy, have they said what kind of steroids or PEDs he was using? Because there's a difference, right? There's a difference between some of the things that athletes were getting pinched for in the 90s versus things like a stimulant or something that's on the list of performance-enhancing drugs that you're not supposed to use that could help you work out long. I
genuinely need to be leaked out.
I don't know enough about it to really make the judgment call, but I know that there are some slight differences. What Yannick Sinner got in trouble for that has been a long fought over battle in tennis over the last 2 years could be a completely different thing than what Barry Bonds was doing.
Well, I do know a little something about this. I do love the expression pinched. Someone was pinched for. That feels like something that someone would say more in the 1920s, right?
That's why Roy Shield, the Shield Watcher was the one who
Yes,
who
Pinched
started
is-
with the pinch.
Yeah, can you guys get me the origins of Pinched, please? But the thing that I do know something about is that South Florida has been a bit of a rejuvenation mecca for many of these athletes. And the science is at the highest end of wherever it is that you'd find people willing to cross a line over money. All of these economies that are bodies are using the height of medicine to heal, to be professionally better, but also to skirt all of the people monitoring whether or not they're cheating. So when these guys come out and say, I made a mistake on a supplement, which is what they all do, but you don't know whether it's a supplement or an injection. Trust me when I tell you that all of the science being used here is to push the boundaries beyond where they can get caught, not beyond where the boundaries are. They are trying to avoid the police as much as they are trying to heal their bodies because, of course, competitive people who are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on trainers and medicine of their own money to repair their bodies and their economies are going to go to all lengths to outcompete the next guy doing it.
I think the crazy thing about where we are in like performance enhancing drugs, like unfortunately, is now when you see someone like gets pinched for performance enhancing drugs, I think the first thought most people have is like, oh, so you're just dumb. Like, because like everyone's doing it and they know exactly how to get around it. And like, oh, we have someone that's dumb and couldn't figure out how to get around it or is just like reckless and didn't do what they needed to do to properly pass the test, which like is a crazy thing. But like as sports fans, you just kind of have accepted that everyone's just trying to get around the system and they've figured out how to beat it. And then when someone does, you're like, oh, why can't you figure out how to get around it?
I think that is where we are, though, on how superhuman and unnatural some of the things are right now at the height of science. Of course, people would be ultra competitive on that and would find a place where we've arrived there, Billy, just like you are, where we're all looking at it and saying, yeah, they're all probably doing something a lot, like something that's very close to the line on how it is that they stay maximum competitive.
I think the reasons why this one resonated so much is, as Roy mentioned, you don't see this often in this sport. And his explanation was, I took something I shouldn't have, that I wasn't aware, that I wasn't completely aware I shouldn't have, to get back. Well, this is a player that was so impacted by all of his injuries. I'm sure many people in our audience that kind of tangentially follow the sport know that generally when we invoke Aaron Ekblad's name, months ago, it was about frustration. This guy is making bad mistakes. He can't keep up. He's a shell of himself. And this year, all that went away. And he was starting to be healthy. And you couldn't ignore the correlation between, okay, maybe it's just fitness, but now you have this element thrown into it, and you start wondering, well, I guess my eyes weren't lying to me. He was a different player, and this is why.
Struggling to find the origin, but it is British originally. British slang.
Okay,
Pinched.
so thank you. We're further along than we were moments ago.
I think the other thing I think of when I think of a lot of these athletes who have been using PEDs for a long time is that like a lot of these things we know are really bad for you in the long term, and so it sort of like makes me sad because there's so much pressure to obviously perform and to like maximize your prime as an athlete and your earning potential, that like you understand like what they're putting their bodies through, and that it is something that like most of our bodies wouldn't be able to withstand. And so it's very like, it's sad sometimes to think about too much, because it's like something that as fans, like we're just being entertained. We're like, stomaching that stupid decision, you dumb hockey player, but like internally and physically, like he's probably going through like an insane amount of pressure.
There was a wedding of one of the Florida Panthers when they had lost to the Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup final. And people were in neck braces, people who were on crutches, like everyone looked like they were in a military hospital.
Can you guys find me that? Because Roy is sitting here smiling at the idea of that's what it costs to win the championship. That brought
in that sport? Didn't Ekblad play with a broken bone in his leg?
Yes.
I think he played with a broken bone in his leg. And I saw those photos, and I was happy with the season. Panthers were the last seed to get into the playoffs, lucky to get into the playoffs. They went on this majestic run, and I saw those photos. I'm like, man, is that worth it? Like there were like a half dozen people that shouldn't have been out. They should have been on bed rest.
No, but you, I think you constantly in your analysis of sports around here more than anybody else, you're the one who says, "Oh, he was dinged up." Or
they do that lower body injury famously.
I know you got to play through that, whatever that is.
Hockey fans love to tell you how tough their favorite players are. Yeah. It's not just Mike.
Absolutely. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk was in a serious car accident on the ice, a broken collarbone. He left the game. He came back and had a game-winning assist in that game before he couldn't get out of bed the following day.
Do you understand if you ask them to care that much, then you can't be that upset when they care so much that they also use the healing agents that are on the line?
I think you can be upset because no one else gets caught.
Yeah.
Like,
you're not upset that you're cheating. You're upset that they're dumb.
I think that's where we are with some of this stuff.
Also, like, outside of Florida, I don't think anyone cares about Aaron Ekblad.
No, but I'm just
opposing fans do.
Look, but I'm bringing it up well, you care about the Bills. Like, you care about the Bills, and you don't care about that controversy over there.
That's just football.
I don't know how many people are getting up for Larry Ogunjobi.
No,
it's just rare that you see two of them announced simultaneously. Like, wait, was this the offseason plan?
Let me bring up somebody that people do care about here because I wanted to ask you guys. I don't know what's the truest thing now because of the amount of lying that there is around business this time of year. It's Shedeur Sanders that I want to talk about. But just to close the loop on that previous topic, what do you think will happen if I just go over a world of the world's most competitive people and just drop money down there and make them fight over it? Like they're going to use science. The amount of money and pressure that we're talking about in these economies that feed families is what funds sports, the desperation of all that. It's what we're watching. Shedeur Sanders goes into the draft, and I don't know what's real or true about he's dropping. That his arrogance has put off executives, and that Shedeur Sanders may, and I saw this recently, fall right out of the first round, which kind of floored me because there aren't very many good quarterbacks in this draft, and the bottom end of this first round is not very strong. What's the recent on Shedeur Sanders? Because I want to talk about confidence at that position, and I want to talk about belief, and I'm curious what's happening that might be considered real around Shedeur Sanders.
Well, I know that that Louis Riddick came out and said what's happening to Shedeur Sanders is unfair because people are slandering his name, and a lot of this is people reading tea leaves, hearing whispers, and talk show hosts running with this thing. But quite honestly, I think what's happening mostly is he has a very weak arm. If he were in the league right now and he were a starter in the league, I've read people surmise that he'd be number 30, 31, possibly 32 in terms of arm strength. And maybe he shouldn't have been looked at. If this were maybe next year's quarterback class, he wouldn't be discussed as a first-round draft pick. Maybe he's being discussed as a first-round draft pick because it's a hugely important position. And this year, outside of Cam Ward, there really isn't consensus on who can be a franchise-changing guy.
Isn't this what you want if you're Sanders? Okay, I'm going to a better team now. No. Like, he's projected to go to the Steelers, I'm seeing here at 21. I'm just saying, like, I get it. You want to be a top overall pick, but the lower you get in the first round, you get better teams.
I think he can spin it into this is a better spot for me. But no, it's definitely not what he wanted because I think before his bowl game, he came out with cleats that had the Giants logo and the Raiders logo. While the draft order was not yet locked in, these were teams that were talked about as potentially having the number one pick. It's not going the way that he wanted.
If you're a team that wants him, this is what you want to happen because you want him to fall to you because he just kind of starts, plummeting. But no, Shedeur is not hoping that he falls out of the first round by any means just because he might end up on a better team.
I'm not saying
he's costing himself money.
I'm just saying, does he say, okay, maybe this is not what I wanted, but this could work out for me?
Well, also the better teams all have quarterbacks, right? So like he wants to go to a situation where he's going to play or like there's a playing plan in place for him, not just he doesn't want to be a backup on the Chiefs.
I think in December he certainly had better odds than Cam Ward to be the number one pick. He was like a slight dog to not be the number one overall draft pick. And in the months that have followed, as he's going through this process, if people inspect his character a little bit more and also his actual skill set, it's not going the way that he wanted.
Well, those are two different things, and I want to talk about both of them because when you throw out the metric, because it's not something that we've had measured, but weak arm. Give me all the guys in the NFL that you think have weak arms who are starters, where you're just watching. Like, when I think weak arm, you got to be Drew Brees. And you have to be that kind of accurate. Tua? Or were you were just coughing?
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay.
Allergies.
There aren't many that you would look at and say that arm's not strong enough. But when it comes to Shedeur, that is something that, to the eye, I think people can look and see those outs have a little parabola in them. They're not quite Justin Herbert throws. But I want to talk about the other thing, which is what was coming out of the scouting combine was attitude stuff, was arrogance stuff, was how he was interviewing.
Is that shocking? Like,
No,
you
no.
can understand. Like, well, we all understand where it comes from, right? His dad is his biggest supporter, and he's done nothing. I think, didn't he say, "Hey, let's go to this rap concert and support my son"? He's always been in a bubble where he's playing the most important position for his dad, and everybody has to ingratiate themselves to the head coach. It's a byproduct of these environments that he's been put in.
I'm not saying that it's surprising. I'm saying that I would think that if I put all of these factors in play, that usually in hypothetical athlete X, there are things we would like. Do you want your quarterback to have belief? Do you want your quarterback to come from an upbringing of a professional athlete who knows what it takes to have the correct belief? Do you, when parenting, is there something that you can give your child that's better than the support that creates belief? Like, is there anything outside of love? What can a parent give to a child? Maybe we say discipline or something else, but what's stronger than giving your child belief? Deion Sanders is one of the most confident people in the history of sports and one of the most interesting athletes ever. That he would give his son a quarterback belief at the position. Why would that be off-putting?
It's fine, but like if you're a team looking for a quarterback, you want the parents who have given your quarterback a good arm, and we can find the belief down the road.
It's a tough data point. Famously in the movie Draft Day, Kevin Costner makes a decision because no one showed up to the quarterback's birthday, and he's like, "Well, that's a big red flag." I mean, it could be because all the people that had a problem with Shedeur ended up leaving the program. Trust me, you can Google it. There have been plenty of people that have their opinions about how Deion Sanders runs his program that didn't like it and had things to say. But I could say from watching a lot of Colorado football last year, the teammates love Shedeur. So how is this actually rubbing his team? I understand where there's that concern, but in terms of rah-rah leader guy, Shedeur seems very supportive of his teammates, and the optics are his teammates love him.
When you talk weak arm, we can say that, but it didn't feel like anybody was saying that when, through the consensus of the last half of the season, he was going to be a top 5 pick.
It's also not a popular thing to say, as he's literally winning overtime. We're sending games into overtime with 40-yard passes that do tend to hang in the air. But if you think about a lot of Travis Hunter's highlights, it's a lot of individual athleticism. It was hard to know what the real data there was because all season long, it almost felt like the offensive identity for Colorado was, we're getting one of these guys a Heisman. We're just going to spam the math.
You guys are parents. Belief. Giving your child belief. The support that makes a child have confidence or believe. Like, where would it rank on how high on the list of things that you want to do as a parent?
I think right behind making sure your son's the executive producer of his friend's sports show.
I mean, there could be irrational belief. We know that. That's a genetic trait, right? That Shedeur's confidence in himself has to come from his father some way, right? Biologically speaking, but he's also plenty talented. I will support my daughter. I will go to all of her events. I've also watched her play soccer. I'm not going to fill her head with, these dreams of her playing for the U.S. women's national team. If anything, I'm going to take her out of soccer and realize this is not your calling, babe.
I want my children to believe in myself, but that has nothing to do with what the NFL needs at the position. Believing in yourself is great. You could also be not that great. I'm not saying that that's Shedeur, but what they care about is talent and arm strength and all of that. They're not handing out Nobel Prizes. They're trying to win Lombardi trophies. Who cares if you believe in yourself?
But Billy,
everyone's full of every college is full of walk-ons that believed in themselves that just weren't good enough.
The reason I say, it's not who cares. It's being a knock. you're saying weak arm strength. The reports were he bombed the interviews and his stock dropped from the scouting combines because the executives thought he was arrogant. So it's not that belief
relative to his talent.
Because there's a balance to it. Confidence becomes arrogance when you don't have any. Like, you have to be a little humble too. You can be confident,
Also,
but you don't want to be.
If you're good enough, you can look past it. Like this weekend, I don't know why, but this weekend I was watching highlights of Baker Mayfield when he was at Oklahoma. And he was
on that algo too?
Yeah, and he was
when they
going
refused
back,
to shake his hand?
They didn't shake his hand, and he was talking the entire game. He grabbed his crotch. He looked at the other team. He was screaming at them the entire game. I think it was against Kansas, and the broadcasters were like, "Oh, the NFL scouts, they're not going to like that one. They're not going to like that in their locker room. They're going to say that's probably going to impact him. Number one pick." Like, so if you're good enough, you can look past all of the arrogance. It's just a matter of if the measurables aren't there and they don't think that his arm is strong enough, they're not going to put up with it as much.
Teams love that confidence. Cam Ward has plenty of that confidence. It's when do you turn it off? When do you know that, I should be interviewing right now, not giving off cocky, arrogant quarterback? And there's something clearly happening in these interviews where his personality is rubbing those executives the wrong way. Cam has, if you ever see Cam, they work out together. Cam comes off as the more confident guy whenever they're paired with one another. But through the evaluation process, he's also a good team guy in a more conventional sense.
I mean, it's not good for like a sports radio show, but like it's all stupid, right? Like it doesn't matter how confident you are or how good your ability is. Like the NFL draft ends up being a crapshoot anyways. We were talking about it with Laramie Tunsil last week and how people, oh my God, we don't know what to do here. And then he ends up falling and then he ends up being like a multi-time Pro Bowler. So like Shedeur can fall, and he's either going to work out or he's not going to work out. And he's going to work out whether he's the number 7 pick or he's not going to work out if he's a 7 pick or work out as a 28th pick or not work out as a 28th pick. Like, it doesn't really matter all that much.
Yeah, we could do that about all of sports. Can you get me Laramie Tunsil, please, and what he's been traded for in the entirety of his career? All of it. What Laramie Tunsil has brought back. And I wanted to talk because Micah Parsons, when Laramie Tunsil was traded to the Commanders, put up a tweet saying WTF because the Commanders keep getting stronger. And what's happening in that division is that the Commanders and the Eagles have gotten so far out ahead of the Giants and Cowboys that the only time we talk about the Cowboys is when DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons are going back and forth with each other. You guys do realize that Micah Parsons right now in Dallas, through play and through talk, is the biggest star they have. Dak Prescott's famous.
Man, the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, it's also always talked about on.
But not the personality to be controversial in the modern age and to keep getting into fights that keep his name out there. Micah Parsons is developing a temperament as a star, whether you want to say Dak Prescott or CD Lamb are bigger stars. I'm telling you, this player at this position, through excellence, is getting a notoriety and fame for his mouth, and he cares about selling it because the back and forth with DeMarcus Lawrence is leaving the Cowboys, and he is saying, while going to Seattle, I knew I was never going to win a Super Bowl in Dallas. Micah Parsons comes back at him saying that's some clown, and Lawrence comes back at him, if you spent more time winning instead of tweeting, thinking about winning more than tweeting, whatever it is that he said. Just the back and forth is, this is what the Cowboys are now. And Micah Parsons, people have talked about this with the Cowboys. Jerry Jones is totally fine with the spectacle and the noise and when he brings attention to a product that isn't that good in the name of marketing. But the fans don't like it so much when it's their star player, Micah Parsons, and he's going back and forth with everybody because the beef makes Micah Parsons more famous, and he's not afraid of the noise, nor is he afraid of the smoke. Like he'll go after anybody.
He is, and it's grating. It's grating when they're not winning. And I know plenty of Cowboys fans that are rubbed the wrong way by how Micah Parsons does, Twitch streams and podcasts. And when they're not getting the results that they want on the field, they start turning on everybody over there. But I do think Dak Prescott's a bigger star than him, just because I observed on mute the A block of First Take for a year and a half.
Okay, and that's more symbolic than it is interesting, right? Because in terms of personality or whatever it is,
no doubt.
But I mean, just
Micah Parsons wants to be thought of as one of those personalities, where Dak Prescott almost laments his celebrity.
You're
publicly.
not allowed to be quite that at quarterback. We were talking before about Shedeur Sanders and whether or not your quarterback can be for lack of a better word. And I just don't think it matters. You'd like your teammates to like you. And it looks like Baker Mayfield's teammates.
He finally got to a spot where his teammates love him. But, yeah, his act wore thin in Cleveland when they weren't producing.
Well,
he got pushed out of there.
Somebody who somehow straddles the line on confidence without being a dick publicly is Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow now has, after publicly campaigning for this part was interesting to me because I think we all know watching Cincinnati play last year that their offense was good enough to win the Super Bowl. But their defense was an atrocity. And now what they've done is they've made T. Higgins the second highest paid number 2 receiver and Jamar Chase the highest paid receiver. And if you're going to spend, and this was after Joe Burrow spent all of last season in press conferences politicking for them to sign T. Higgins, who he doesn't actually need. He does not need those 2 receivers. Now Trey Hendrickson has asked for a trade. They can't afford the one defensive player that they had. What do you do if you're the Cincinnati Bengals? Your quarterback wants something. Your quarterback says something publicly, but it's economically irresponsible to reward him because you saw what their team was by blueprint last year. And while it'd be nice for their offense to be good and for him to be happy, they clearly need monster money spent on the defense.
That was a nowhere franchise until Joe Burrow got there. They made it to a Super Bowl, and they made it to an AFC Championship game. I don't really have many data points of Joe Burrow being elite when he's not surrounded by multiple world-class receivers. That's not a knock on Joe Burrow. I believe Joe Burrow to be great, but I also know what he had in college and what he's had in the pros, and anytime they're good, with the exception of last year, they have 2 really good receivers at least to help Joe Burrow take them there.
I mean, T. Higgins was hurt some last year.
And they didn't make the playoffs.
But they were good at offense all year. What I'm saying to you, just in the fiscal responsibility of the age, okay? This is what I'm asking you about the Bengals, laughing stock and blueprint. Their offensive and defensive lines need monster help after you just saw in the Super Bowl what happens when you have a great offensive and defensive line. If I give you any number 2 receiver, Joe Burrow and a healthy Jamar Chase are going to make a number 2 receiver be value. T. Higgins is great. That ain't value when you have to pay your number 2 more than anyone in the league and you're trying to win in the margins of money.
I don't disagree. If I'm paying a quarterback that much money, I'd like to think that, like Patrick Mahomes, we can afford to lose even a Tyreek Hill. Like, ideally, if I'm paying my quarterback that much money, I can afford to lose Jamar Chase. However, I'm the Cincinnati Bengals. I never spend money. I have a unicorn at quarterback that has done the impossible, seemingly, and it's dragged my franchise from having a top pick. He went number 1, so a number 1 overall pick to a team that was perennially in the Super Bowl conversation. I trust a quarterback. What do you want here? What do you want us to do? We've addressed the defense by bringing in Al Golden. I don't think it's enough to overcome losing Hendrickson and Hubbard. But they're going to have to change their business model because of the quarterback contract that they gave. And he feels strongly enough that I need T. Higgins to be what you need me to be.
The question I need to ask you guys about this is, do you have to cave if you're the Bengals when your quarterback has gone public with putting pressure on your organization to bring back your number 2 so that your 2 receivers can be happy, when I don't believe that if Joe Burrow is what everyone tells me he is and what I believe him to be, that he would have any trouble making someone else a very good number 2, because that's what I'm paying him for. That's what I'm asking of him.
Joe Burrow could apply the pressure on guys like Hendrickson. Like, he could have. He chose not to.
No, he did it, but he did it with Higgins, and he did it saying, I'll restructure my own money to get him here. Like, he made his choice, and the organization didn't seem like it had a choice after that.
They don't.
But I'm saying they do. I'm saying they do.
Okay. It's weird. Last week you were like, Myles Garrett should hold this franchise hostage and have as much power as possible. And now you're going on the other way around it, like, screw you, Joe Burrow.
One of them is a loser that is still a loser and is only relevant because Myles Garrett is there. The other one is a different situation where they've been a loser, but you now have expectations for them because they have Joe Burrow.
Well, in good faith, I also think that you're calling for a power that historically just doesn't exist in the NFL. NFL players have never had this power that you were projecting onto Myles Garrett. It's just not the power dynamic of their contracts. They have very little leverage. They can't do what NBA teams are often faced with when it comes to star players doing that. But I defer to self-recognition that I'm a loser franchise, and I've always been one, except for when Joe Burrow is here. And what Joe Burrow tells me he needs, I'm going to get for Joe Burrow because that's usually worked out for us.
Okay, well, they did that with Aaron Rodgers, and now the story is that, and somebody help me with the reported details on this, because it went from Giants to Pittsburgh to now Minnesota, where the value of this position is such that they can actually end up calling some of the shots on your organization, whether it's against your organization's will or not. What's true and not true about Aaron Rodgers being interested in Minnesota, which he obviously would be, and Minnesota possibly being interested in Aaron Rodgers?
So a couple of days ago, it seemed like Adam Schefter was very flustered and putting it all on Aaron Rodgers. Just pick. Are you going to play or not? It's a Giants or it's a Steelers. Are you going to pick or not? And Rodgers waited it out, and the most recent reporting is his top choice is Minnesota. But it's kind of weird because it takes two to tango, and all the framing around the reporting of Aaron Rodgers and his decision, his preference being Minnesota, is if they want him to. So now it's another thing that we're waiting on to figure out when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. It seems as though it's been pretty much identified that Aaron Rodgers would like to play and play for the Minnesota Vikings. That is his top choice. Now he's kind of waiting for Minnesota to reciprocate.
Wouldn't that be anyone's top choice? If you see Sam Darnold resurrected there because of some of the best skill position players, the combination of them that you will see in the league, isn't that the choice that isn't that the wisest choice for him?
No doubt. It's probably the smartest public move that he's made in quite some time. I think, and you're not overly threatened by the young quarterback because a young quarterback has to show that his body can even hold up. So, yeah, it's a great place for him. Absolutely, 100. I get it. I think he's doing the smart thing. I would be a little concerned as to, well, I'm just really going to do the Brett Favre thing?
Whole pass.
I'm just going to do the whole thing. And I'm going to play Green Bay. I'm going to play my replacement. I'm going to do that whole thing. Really, I'm okay.
It's the best spot for him, though. Like, what the choices are those three and only those three. Jessica, are you relieved to hear that you might not get stuck with him at quarterback in Pittsburgh?
It's a very unfortunate situation to be a Steelers fan right now because no matter what, like, you just got to accept they're not going to be it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad.
Shedeur.
But would you rather have the headache of Aaron Rodgers and how annoying he is? I don't know. I mean, most likely not.
You know it's going to be bad. You know that's it. You just are portending doom.
Yes. I mean, they'll still win 9 games, but.
It's time for Against the Spread. And it's brought to you by our friends at DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Roy, kick us off.
Devils at Blue Jackets tonight. I got a word stat for you here. The Devils have failed to cover in 9 straight night games versus opponents on a losing streak. The Blue Jackets on a 3-game losing streak. The Devils just lost to the Penguins 7-3 on Saturday. The Blue Jackets are underdogs in this game by a goal and a half.
It begs the question, could you find a stat for anything?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
That was an oddly specific stat.
I know. It's ridiculous. And because of that stat, I'm going Blue Jackets tonight as the underdog, a goal and a half underdog.
Against the spread. You're not worried they've run out of gas? They've been one of the nicer stories in the sport, but
they're dealing with injuries.
They look totally listless.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it is a night game.
It is a night game.
That's not good analysis.
What? That was, actually.
It is a night game.
It's making me stay away from the game. I know that was the opposite of the intention, but the form is so bad from the Blue Jackets.
I don't think that Roy made a very convincing argument for what it is that he's asking us to bet.
No. It's a night game. And New Jersey can't beat a team that's on a losing streak.
He was a good point by Roy.
Now we go to Billy for our Anaheim Ducks pick of the week.
We've been flying high together. You know what they say, ducks fly together, and we have been hot when we have been picking the Ducks. 4-0, I believe, this season on Ducks games. It's always a 1.5 goal spread there, and the Ducks aren't always winning, but they're always covering. But, friends, I hate to disappoint you. Tonight, I'm not taking the Ducks. The Ducks aren't playing tonight.
Well,
Instead, I'm going to switch things up a bit. Guys, I don't know if you heard. MLB starts tomorrow. Big series.
Wow.
These are games that everybody marks down on their calendar. They say, I can't wait for these games. The season's officially starting, and everyone's excited about these games. Everybody cares. They count. That's what we've been saying around here all day long. So, Dodgers are at the Cubs in Tokyo, but they're still the road team. Yamamoto is taking on Imanaga. But I think the story of the day should be no surprise to anyone. Shohei Ohtani. That guy, guys, is a rock star in Japan. I don't know if you caught on to this.
Pretty good.
Well, you saw what was going on this past weekend. So they had some games. They had, the Dodgers were playing a team there, and the Cubs were playing a team there, and they had split it up. It was kind of like a doubleheader situation. They couldn't get the fans out because Shohei was playing in the first game. They said, guys, you gotta skedaddle, get out of here. The second game, you don't have tickets for these games. Couldn't clear out the stadium. People love Shohei Ohtani over there in Japan. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Dodgers minus 1.5 tomorrow against the Cubs at Chicago, at Tokyo, against the spread.
Well, whatever.
Just a runaway freight train of gibberish.
4-0. Ducks fly together.
Yeah, well, you didn't.
They've been
give
money.
us
They've been
anything
money.
on
I've
the
been
Ducks.
tailing. They did lose yesterday, but he didn't make a pick for yesterday.
Not yesterday's game.
Chris Cody, did I hear you under your breath ripping Jay Williams in the other room?
Well, this is bracket season, Dan. This is everybody. What's their bracket? Who they got? Who's their Final Four? What's their upset pick? I am just looking for experts that I can copy their picks. I saw Clark Kellogg has Clemson going far. Boom, Clemson going far in my bracket. But not Jay Williams. He's zagging while others zig. All ones and two seeds in his Elite Eight, which might end up being right. It's one of those things. You think you got to overthink it. Sometimes you don't. But it's like, Jay Will, go on a limb. Give me something.
Chris, I literally just filled out my first women's NCAA tournament
All
bracket.
ones and twos?
Yeah, I mean.
Got to find your 3 or 4, though.
I have.
The women's game.
Not in women.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Chalky.
Except LSU. I mean, they were a 3 seed when they won, weren't they? Yeah. It's only like 2 years ago.
Working a 3. Come on.
I have a Final Four right now that is so chalk. Wow. I have UConn upsetting USC in the Elite Eight, making the Final Four, but then I have UCLA, South Carolina, and Texas. I'm like, I don't feel good about this.
No, but you should feel good about it. The women's game isn't madness this time of year. Like the top 20.
I don't even like South Carolina like this much, but I just don't see them losing to North Carolina or Duke.
If you win with your bracket, you're going to split it with like 17 other people in your pool.
Well, that's the thing.
Also, I mean, last year when I filled out my women's NCAA tournament bracket, I was like, if I go all chalk, I'm going to win this thing. No, I don't. I lost by 1,000,000 points. There are people that are very good at getting these first round games right, like the 8s and 9s and everything. It's not me, okay? It's not me. I even have Notre Dame losing in the second round here, which would be a huge upset to Michigan, I believe.
Why'd you do that?
Shut the front door.
Why are we shutting the front door?
Because I said last night, they've really petered out at the end of the season.
Is this a size thing? Does Michigan have size on them?
They do have a good freshman, but a big, but so does Notre Dame. So it's not a size thing. It's Notre Dame just petering out, and this is me protecting my, emotional hedging right now.
This all begs the question, what is the perfect amount of brackets to fill out?
Are we begging that question?
Some people wonder, do you just fill out one? If I fill out multiple, am I doing the same results in every bracket? Peter Burns had a theory that you fill out 3. Right when it comes out, you just poop one out.
That's this one.
And then your
really
second one
pooped it
is
out.
you think about it. You look at matchups. You dissect. You really crunch the numbers. That's number 2. And number 3, you go with your heart. Yeah. You just what you want to happen. So you fill out 3 different brackets, and you see what's what at the end.
I wish the bracket makers went with their hearts and were cognizant of the fact that we could have a UCLA-USC rematch in the Final Four and a South Carolina-Texas rematch, which is literally like what we just did last weekend. Like if all of the 1 seeds make it, that would be so annoying. Why did they do that? Flip them around.
I wanted to ask you guys a question about Stephen A. Smith and Larry David, but before I do that, I wanted to tell you a story from my home. this morning, and I wanted to ask you guys what you think of it. None of you are cat people, correct?
Hell
There's nobody in here.
I love cats, but I don't have one.
Go Cats.
I'm a dog.
So I've always been a dog person, and I've never had much of a relationship with any cats. My family did have one for 20 years, but it was outdoors, and it wasn't the connection that I have with dogs. But my wife is a cat person, and so I have inherited 2 cats that now boss around a pit bull, and I see their personality, and it's been delightful to get to love cats. The old one, a gray old cat, was on the kitchen table the other day, and when my wife looked up, that cat had a piece of her breakfast in its mouth and isn't supposed to, a piece of avocado. They don't even like avocado. I don't know what she was doing. And my wife, who I've never seen the side of her at this old gray lady, shouted at. And the question I wanted to ask you guys.
They usually are.
Well, but I thought I almost use ass exclusively for males. That Otis is an ass. The other cat is an ass, but I just don't think of ass as someone that gets something that gets. We were talking before about quarterbacks and whether a quarterback can be too confident, be an ass. I don't think of that as something I say toward women. Am I being do you often call women ass, females ass?
Well, it was a cat.
I know, but she was calling a female cat an ass. And it felt wrong to me, and I just started wondering whether that was a male, whether I was somebody who was just doing ass exclusively for males.
I've called my wife an ass before. Remember last week when I said that she wouldn't let me get ice cream after 8:30 with my daughter? I called her an ass when she did that. Yeah.
All cats are ass, though.
Yeah.
They're
like
jerks. I would describe them as jerks.
Every last
No,
one
they're
of
all
them.
ass.
All evil.
That's like a feature, not a bug.
I don't go with ass when I'm angry with a woman because there's so many great other words that are gender specific to call them.
I believe women can be ass.
You all have one.
Thank you, Roy. That's
This
excellent.
is one of your weird gender blind spots, Dan.
there's a
First
B,
of all,
another one.
you shouldn't call women anything, but also you can call them ass.
Just never have. Just never have. Speaking of which, this is an awkward transition.
Wait, can I ask you a question about your cat before you transition real
There's
quick?
a
You said
keyword.
you inherited them. Do you is it like if you're like a stepdaddy, do you then adopt the cats also so that you're the cat's daddy? Or no? Like real kids? Can you adopt a cat that's already been adopted?
What are you asking me? Because
when you get married and you have stepchildren, right? Like sometimes the step parent will adopt the children, and
this
then
is
it's
a bit
like
of this would be a step pet scenario.
Yeah,
I think.
step pet.
W word.
Do you consider them yours?
Did she
Yeah.
have the
Or
cats
hers?
before you were around?
Do they
Are
feel
you like,
you're-
get your cat out of
Yeah.
here? Or
There's
are
an
you like,
S
this is
word.
our
Is it
cat?
our cat now? Like, are you
He's
the
trying
daddy?
to call you a cat daddy.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think they are her cats, but I have absolutely grown to love them. So what does that
they're
mean?
yours, but you haven't
guess.
done the formality of adopting them.
No, I don't have any
Oh.
paperwork. They are, and nor do I feel about them the way that she feels about them because I cannot reach those heights. They are not mine.
They
They're-
can be. That's why you go
Well, but
adopt them.
I think
but
you just answered your question,
yeah.
really.
Geez, that's sad.
These are about my limits, though.
Oh.
This makes me a step pet dad because she
You're a
had them
step pet
before
dad
me.
who
Isn't
stepped
that
up.
why you asked the question?
No,
Chris?
but if you become a stepdad, those children obviously were there before you go in and you marry the person and you become the stepdaddy. So I'm just wondering if that's a thing that can happen when you marry someone that has pets that you then view. Do you view them as your kitties?
Well, you've asked this again, and I view them as hers. And
Oh.
why do you make that sound? I
It's
don't
just
understand.
sad
Why is
for
that
them,
sad?
If they
really.
were children, would you love them?
Yeah.
I
They
do
were her
love them. Wait a
children.
minute. Why are
But
you
the way
making
you're
this-
saying it sounds
But
like
you don't love them enough.
yeah, they feel lesser than.
You could love them more.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
I would say, I don't know. Are you and your significant other, the way that you love is exactly equal in strength? I believe my wife is capable of greater loves than I am. I believe my wife has fewer limits as it regards love than I do. I believe her love is bigger than mine. So
I think that Lee and I are equally dead inside, which is why it kind of works.
That's good.
Yeah.
You should get a cat.
Why do you have a limit to your love? Why can't you love the cats more?
I have found that over the length of this relationship, I have learned that my love is less limited than I thought it was. But when I met her, I was a certain kind of limited, and since then, I've noticed that the way she feels about the cats is stronger than the way that I do.
That's just a cat thing. I'm with you. Like, I've had family cats that I'm just like, yeah, I like the dog way more.
Yeah.
Like, my parents have had multiple cats, and I don't touch them. We just say hello. Just a pass-by relationship.
Also, like, counterpoint, I would say, just based on the story you told us, like, you've never called the gray cat an ass. So, like, that could, like, you could be capable of more love. You're calling yourself Mr. Limited. I say we go to Mr. Unlimited here in terms of, like, the love that you can give the cats. But also, when you reach the level of love, you also can reach that level of hate that you probably can't reach with the cats also, where you couldn't bring yourself to calling the cat an asshole because you don't seem to have that passion one way or another towards the cat.
I know that Mike and Jessica both have relationships with animals, and do you and your spouse feel
What'd you just call her?
exactly the same about your pets? Is your amount of love for the pet exactly the same?
In my household, I think so. I think we both love big. Now, the dog does not reciprocate.
I was going to
The
say
equal
the
amount of
same
love.
thing. Yes, I think Lee and I both, we love Willow dearly to death, but she really, really likes Lee.
Because animals
Really
aren't
likes
smart,
Lee.
so that they aren't smart
Whoa.
enough to, like, balance out.
Wait a
Like,
minute,
they just
man.
play favorites. They're like, yep, I like that person a lot more.
It often is tied to when they feed me. When is this feeding
Yeah.
session happening? How early did this person catch them in the feeding cycle? That's at least what I tell myself, as opposed to
What can I get away with?
Wait, Roma likes Cynthia
Roma
more?
likes Cynthia more.
They like people that can get away with stuff. It's like kids. Like, my daughter likes my wife more because she can get away with it.
Opposite for
You're
us,
the
though,
disciplinarian?
because Lehman's the disciplinarian, and she really respects him. She does not respect me at all because I let her do whatever she wants.
A lot of it is tied to feeding time.
But they also both adopted those animals together, like while they were a unit with their significant others. So it's not like Jessica's coming in and Lee had
Right.
Willow beforehand.
Although Billy, we adopted Willow, and then I moved to Miami like 6 months later, and Lee and Willow stayed in New York for like a year and a half because of work. So we were me and Willow were long distance for about a year, and I think she really resents me for it. We've never gotten over that hurdle.
To be clear, when you accuse me of loving less because I'm a step pet dad, those animals are also clearly hers. They behave with her in a more loving fashion that they behave with me. So when they get a lesser love from me, it is reciprocating their lesser love of me because they were hers before I met them.
Fine, so you have a transactional emotional relationship with your cats?
You need to be the bigger person here, Dan. You're the only person in this equation with the cat, but you need to be the bigger person and say, you know what, I'm going to love you unconditionally whether you love me or not.
But that's the thing. Not all cats like that.
Really?
Like Chris was describing about, like, seeing the cat and just being like, sup, and then walking away.
Yeah.
Like,
Just walk
that's-
by, a little head nod.
Yeah.
Also,
that's cat companionship for a lot of cats. That's all you need to do.
Paul McCartney's rule of love does not apply to cats. They're a strange breed. The love that you make is not equal to the love that you take.
I think that you might need to have like cat dates. You know what I mean? Like to kind of establish your relationship with the cats independent of your wife's relationship with the cats. Because it seems like that's really what's going on here is that like there's the relationship that Valerie has with the cats and there's the relationship Valerie has with you. And you and the cats are married together in this relationship because of Valerie. But in reality, you guys are all in this together and you're a cat family. Whether you wanted it or not, this is where we are. So I feel like maybe the way that we overcome this is that you have some you time with the cats, and then you guys can strengthen and form your own bonds. You have
My
your own little
relationship
inside
is
jokes.
fine with the cats. I don't need any more of your cat advice.
Okay.
My
I
relationship
feel like you
is
need
good.
to learn how to love. It sounds like
I'm
You
trying
don't
to
love
help
like
here.
Your wife loves.
Not helpful.
You have to want to open up
Self-reported over here.
if we want to move on.
Yeah,
I am happy for your blended family, though. It's not easy to get cats and dogs to get along famously.
Well, we had an incident.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, look, this was.
It was a fight?
Oh, my God, this was terrifying. Well, they have to establish that the dog was inherited, okay? And the dog, again, is a pit mix. This is actually very amusing because he's muscular. Everyone's scared of the dog. Everyone is scared of the dog except for these cats. So the incident actually was a dangerous one because the dog ended up biting Valerie on the leg while lunging at the cat. But so they have to sort it out, right? McGill was actually teaching us. In retrospect, this was a dumb decision. In retrospect, rescuing a pit bull mix with two cats in the house and territorial about space and having them have to have it out was a terrible idea. But the pit is now terrified of the orange cat because of the story I'm about to tell you, okay? We are giving medicine to the old gray bag of vacuum cleaner dust in her ear, and I go to put her down, and I didn't realize that the dog was there when I was putting her down. So the cat runs away from the dog, even though the dog hasn't done anything. The dog is just there. But the protector, the orange cat, the male cat, who thinks he's the boss of my house because he is, sees the gray lady run away, sees the terror, and then goes straight on to attack the pit bull, who doesn't know what it is that's happening because he's never seen this orange creature who's always been respectful behave this way.
Is your cat's name Gray Bag of Dust?
I'm starting to piece together what's going on here. You call one the orange one, and then you call the other one the old gray lady and the gray bag of vacuum dust.
Which one's the asshole?
I understand now the gray bag of vacuum dust, if I followed correctly earlier. I think what's going on here is you're refusing to give them names. Like, it's very simple. You have a male orange cat, Garfield. You have a gray, old cat. We'll figure out a name for that one. But like, if you give them names and you make them feel more than, then that improves the relationship.
You call one of them Otis?
One of them is Otis after Otis Redding, yes.
A good name. That's
and
a good
I've
name.
been
Good
avoiding the other one because I don't want to give the name because it's Foot, and it's a ridiculous name. And
That
I
is
don't want,
Garfield
so I was
was
trying
right
to avoid
there.
that. Yeah,
Named after Stugotz?
That's the other
when
one.
he said foot fault?
That's the
Named
other
after
one.
my old college football segment.
So
1 foot wasn't enough, huh? You're like 2 foots.
Well, I knew that was coming, and it's what I was trying to avoid. Like that's
I like
that's
that name.
Precisely. That's why I called. I
Footfoot's a
just
good
knew.
name.
It's cute.
Footfoot's a cute name.
So you thought referring to them as a
Gray bag of
bag
vacuum
of
dust.
dust would
Yeah.
just like that one will.
I thought it
They
would
have
go
paws.
easier. Yes.
Footfoot's a good name. Don't feel bad about that. I like that name.
Pawpaw's cute too, though.
I don't feel bad about
Meow,
that.
meow.
I was simply trying to avoid what I knew would be the feeding frenzy of you guys enjoying that.
My sister's
because,
cat's name is Kennewick.
Like, I was trying to avoid just that. Like, just that.
Anyway, so
No,
the
no,
bag
thank
of vacuum
you.
dust.
Yes,
the other one is Clovis.
I was trying to avoid all of the ways I know you guys to obviously not be helpful. And so I didn't successfully because I'm getting older and I've lost a step. And so I made it an old gray bag of dust. But what happened was, and you guys would have actually enjoyed the visuals of this because I don't still have the scratches on my arms, but I did for a while. I've never seen Otis, the orange one, this way because the orange one knew that this was a fight for dominance of the house. The pit bull did not know that that's what was happening. And I got between them. And it was a bad idea because then the cat charged me. And so what ends up happening is I'm holding the cat by the belly. That's the worst place to hold the cat. And the cat is also holding me by the arms, and we're both screaming at each other. And
It's another reason why I don't like cats, the claws.
You don't have the thumbs to do that.
What's the dog's name?
The dog's name is Early.
Oh.
This is
Come
you
on,
being
a
helpful
pit bull,
again.
you name it Armando.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
right there.
Is that named after who?
Named after not Dan yesterday for the selection show.
You were late.
There
I was
a
logged in at
drawbridge,
5:45.
A
I was
boat.
like-
There's a whole thing.
Is this okay?
A boat and a train. Not
Cuban
just,
time.
Not just a boat and a train.
Hey,
Jackie
Coach
Earl
L
Hurley.
was on time.
So was my father. I was just holding the cat and we were both screaming at each other. And for us, it was a draw, right? Okay, you get to be the man of the house, and that's me saying it to him, and it's also him saying it to me. And what got decided there is Early is no longer in charge around here, and my wife is bleeding, and that was all terrifying. And we had to keep them apart for several months because we didn't want that to happen again.
Oh, that's too bad, man.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Violence.
And now everyone gets along?
Yes, everyone's fine. Well, now Early will simply not. Otis will wait and stand in front of him and make Early turn his face and not look at him because he is now the dominant creature in the household. They had to fight it out in order to establish.
This
that.
sounds unhealthy.
It didn't seem great while I was in it.
Not with all the blood.
I mean,
Are we past it now?
We were both. Yeah, well, I'll never forgive Otis for that. Like, I'll never forget it, I should say. I won't. It's not that I won't forgive it. It's now I have a healthier respect than I ever had.
Do you have Ron McGill on retainer to be
show up at your house.
Oh, he was very helpful during this.
your
This was
pet
terrifying.
whisperer?
I'm just picturing him sitting at the middle of the couch, like, all right, come here, kitty.
I'm just picturing him talking about like what cats do when they have sex. Like he's just not paying attention, just talking about animals
do that.
having
Let me
sex.
see your cat's vagina.
He'll do that April 13th if you want more cat vagina information. April 13th, PoppyDominoes.com, Sex and the Animals. He is breaking out what was in retirement and what has sold out every time he's done it for more than 20 years at Zoo Miami. PoppyDominoes.com is where you go if you want to play in the tournament or get general admission tickets. Or I should say, because this is all a fundraiser, all proceeds going to Ron McGill, you can go to the website and there's stuff you can buy if you cannot go to Bandshell, because all of the money is going to go to Ron McGill.
Is Ricky as short as we make him look
No.
in this promo?
No, that is not accurate. Nor is my father's belly that big either.
Ron is also not this short relative to the two of those.
No, I don't know what
Ricky,
they did. Yes.
Poppy looking down at Ricky.
It's strange. This is not in any way accurate. My father's belly is not that either. But that's what we're going with in the promotional poster.
Don't forget Domino, the wrestler's got to be there too. He didn't make the graphic.
Wow.
The thing that I was saying about Stephen A. Smith and Larry David being courtside during that much ballyhooed LeBron confrontation, the thing that I wanted to ask you guys dead seriously, does it seem to you like Larry David would enjoy Stephen A.'s company?
Yeah, it would. I mean, not what we know about his character. I'm sure if he was around him long enough, he'd come up with something that would bother him. But Larry David famously loves sports. I think he would revel in it.
I could definitely see them kind of grumbling under their breath to each other about basketball, right? Like sort of complaining back and forth.
About the Knicks? Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I just would think that somebody who was bombastic, I don't know what Larry David gets along with, but I would assume it would just be other comedians. It would be other people who are actively having a sense of humor about everything or the process of being a comedian. Well, I've heard him talk to Conan O'Brien and others. Conan O'Brien has said when he comes over to parties at his house, like, what is the comfort level that I have to give you? And he's like, you got to give me at least 3 comedians or 3 comedy writers. Otherwise, I'm going to be a disaster. I'm not going to be good with those people. I'm not going to have a lot of tolerance for whatever the social setting is. But you guys think that sports is the great connector there?
Yeah. Their common bond of complaining for most of their lives about the New York basketball team, I think, brings them together.
You throw something at him just to get him riled up. You know what I mean? Like you say something, I know this is something that Stephen A. is going to really not like. And you say that just to see if you can get him going.
Well, you would enjoy doing that.
Yeah, of course. Why not?
You think that Larry David would enjoy riling up Stephen A. Smith?
Yeah, I do. I think he would enjoy that.
I also learned one thing Knicks fans all sort of have in common is they don't want your sympathy. They want to be angry and complain and annoyed, but as soon as I am extending my the other morning we woke up the morning after the Knicks Warriors game and I was like, oh man, I'm so sad the Knicks lost that game, and Lehman was like, get over it. I was like, oh jeez.
The cliche is misery loves company.
Exactly.
And both those guys are famously miserable.
You just got to be miserable together.
The Knicks.
That would be a good place to connect. When we were talking earlier about how competitive sports are and the lengths that athletes will go to in order to circumnavigate the health issues that are these tests on the body, I don't know how many of you noticed over the weekend that there was a very specific report that came out on Paul George. Jessica was talking about the pressure to perform and amid competitive people and amid aging. The Philadelphia 76ers have been the biggest disappointment in the league this year and one of the biggest disappointments in the history of the league over the last 20 years. Joel Embiid is now out for the season, but the specifics on the Paul George report I thought were interesting because they had one sentence of detail that can only really come from Paul George, which is 5 straight days before the All-Star break in order to play games, he took pain-killing injections. It was oddly specific to see in the report. And Paul George is under the immense pressure of this is the end of his career, the end of his relevance. He's gone to a team that had expectations. He created the expectations by being the missing piece, and now the whole thing has fallen apart. And he also had the pressure to play through all of the injuries that would result in 5 straight pain-killing shots in order to get on the court for the 76ers in a totally lost season.
I think he added the detail of when this happened because there was a lot of fan blowback to him posting himself on a relaxing vacation during the All-Star break. So if he frames it as, I was actually playing hurt, I needed this relaxation, people were just getting in his mentions for having a good time away from the sport. So I think that that's part of the intention there.
But what are the thoughts, though? I'm assuming that it's true, okay? Whatever the intention of it, Paul George and his people are trying to buy favor with, hey, this person's trying their hardest. The expectations are an enormous pressure to have when you're paid like him, and Philadelphia has totally fallen apart all around you. So you're going to the extremity of caring so much that you are trying to mute your body's screaming 5 straight games and telling fans that in order to buy you what? Nothing is the answer, right? That fact buys him not one thing from one fan. Nothing. No, correct. Am I wrong about this? That there is no amount of nuance that's going to be applied by a tolerant Philadelphia fan who's really upset by everything that's happened, who cares one iota that Paul George cares enough to take shots for 5 straight games in what would be the easiest situation to be like, I'm not playing anymore. What do I need to play for? For what?
I mean, it is a data point. I don't know how rational Sixers fans are about it, but I would say, well, he stinks, and I guess part of that is he's hurt, and that's why he stinks.
Philadelphia was supposed to be, when this season started, it wasn't Cleveland. There was going to be however many games better. What is it now? 7, 8 games. Cleveland finally had its 16-game winning streak broken by Orlando, and the Celtics don't look right, and no one cares, right? They barely beat the Nets. I enjoyed the call. I was listening to the call. Someone for the Nets named Wilson, and the announcer, he kept hitting threes, and the announcer on the radio just kept shouting Wilson like the volleyball in Castaway. But that game, Boston has been playing with its food all season, and I think everyone listening to this knows that the dilution of the regular season has been such that no one listening to this actually believes that Cleveland will beat Boston once the playoffs come and once Porzingis and Drew Holiday and Derek White and everyone is out there, so that the Celtics can just take 53s a game, and you can watch Peyton Pritchard become the most heroic, loved player in the history of Boston outside of Larry Bird.
It's an advantage that a championship buys you, too. The notion that they know they've been to the heights, so they know exactly what they have to ratchet it up for, and we've seen them do it before, and it's not something that you could afford the Cleveland Cavaliers having their core not won anything.
It's funny, though, the way that we do that, because we haven't seen you do it, then we think you can't do it. We did that just to the Boston Celtics before they did it, and now they get to be the team. It's a silly way to do it.
It's what Josh Allen's going to be dealing with until he actually does it.
He
very well may be the second greatest quarterback ever, and we'll never know because he's always playing the greatest.
But the Sixers were supposed to be that. When we talked before the season about what the Eastern Conference was going to be, it wasn't Cleveland. It was Boston, Philadelphia, Milwaukee. They're the ones that have the stars. That's what you win with. It's not Mobley, Jared Allen, Garland, and Donovan Mitchell. No, you need stars, and Philadelphia was supposed to have them.
No doubt, it's been a disaster.
No, but not just a disaster, the biggest disaster in the league. There's not a bigger disaster than that one, and it may cost Daryl Morey his job, even though I don't know if it'll cost him his reputation, but Daryl Morey solidified his reputation as the guy who gets people when he landed Paul George. And so I present all of this to you to ask the group. 5 pain-killing shots. Athlete cares enough to be 20 games under 500, cares enough to take the 5 pain-killing shots, and then to have publicly released that he took the 5 pain-killing shots. What does it buy him?
He's definitely looking, look, he did that when he canceled his podcast, the optics of, look, I need to lock in and be serious about basketball right now. So this is a guy that has struggled in the postseason. He's let the moment get to him before, and I think he's just trying to find some alleviation a little bit, some decompression on from the stress that he's under right now.
We haven't done an F1 Minute yet. I've erred in not doing an F1 Minute yet. My apologies for not getting to this earlier. Jessica is the only one among us celebrating St. Patrick's Day. We've mentioned nothing about it. We have not mentioned anything about racing today either. Very excited. It's been how long? How long has it been? How many months has it been since we got the delirious speed of an F1 Minute?
I mean, it's been several months. Chris, play the music. Because the end of last season, I didn't do one for every race. I was, saving it for the exciting ones. And this past weekend, Dan, Formula One was back, and it was exciting. And we are starting the season down under at the Australian Grand Prix. To catch you up, Lewis Hamilton is at Ferrari, now Carlos Sainz is at Williams. No one knows what a rookie driver is, and Max Verstappen is still the defending champion. It's yucky in Melbourne, and here we go. Oh no, before lights out. Isaac Hadjar has crashed his racing bull into the wall in the formation lap. Oh, so sad, so embarrassing. After a delay, the race can finally begin. Lando Norris keeps his lead on the first lap, but Max Verstappen is right behind him in second place. But oh no, another safety car. Jack Doohan's Alpine is into the wall just 6 turns into the race. Carlos Sainz is also out as well as Williams' debut. Verstappen can't keep up with Norris's blistering speed, and Piastri is in hot pursuit. Charles Leclerc's sea is full of water. It must be from all the water. But the slippery track is taking out everyone. Verstappen has the race lead, but it's another safety car. A small American man with an unshaven beard has wandered onto the track in Australia. He's muttering under his breath about NFL free agency, and the marshals can't get him to come home. Stugotz, come home. Lando Norris has won his first Australian Grand Prix, and Bernd Maylander is the driver of the day. Wow.
Where is Stugotz? I saw him. I saw a picture at a college baseball game.
He was wandering around on the track at the F1 race, Dan.
Wait, the driver of the day isn't the winner of the race?
No, it's the safety car driver. It was a joke. Oh. Because he did a lot of loops. Ah. Got it?
Yeah. No, but it's okay.
I wish I had that job.
So Baby Lando won.
Baby Lando did,
wow.
And the McLaren looks really good. Although the race was slippery. Now I'm getting more than a minute. The race was slippery, so we'll see what track conditions are like, next weekend. Yeah. But they looked really fast. He drove really, really well. They made the right strategy calls. It was a good day.
He's the car to beat this year. Yeah. That's crazy. Verstappen, I thought was just going to have it the sport, and now it's just Baby Lando. Jess told us first, 4 or 5 years ago about Baby Lando?
I sure did. Verstappen's still in the mix, though. We'll see how, But the McLaren looks good for the first weekend. Ferrari, not so much.
Good for Mr. Baby.
It is nice to have that speed and intensity of the segment at the end of the show here because I don't know if you guys saw this. It felt like a snort, a jolt of F1 speed. Did you guys see the Michigan baseball player who pantomimed the snorting of the third base line? I'm assuming he's stolen third base there.
I see that?
Is it a triple? He got a triple? That is.
Do we know he's doing that?
What do you mean, do we know if he's doing that? He's snorting the third base line. Like, what else?
Could be like a
doing?
TikTok dance the kids are doing. We don't know. Yeah. All right, he's doing it.
It does seem like he's just snorting the third base line. That's what he's going for there, is he not?
Did he get in trouble? Are you allowed to do this? If this were Miami, he would have been suspended, right, Mike?
You know me and my persecution complex. I'd say absolutely.
Did he get in trouble there? I don't think there's an excessive celebration thing in baseball. There wouldn't be any reason to get in trouble there.
Also, he could say it's not what he's doing.
Yeah. It's college sports. They'll find a reason to get you in trouble.
He was screaming, "Get in the hole."
The eye black also, that's after a triple, right? That's what he's doing. He's sliding into third after a triple.
If that's a first to third, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Yeah. If that's a balk. It was actually a balk.
It can't be that.
It was a line drive. If you know what I mean.
Oh, wait, there you go.
Little baseball humor.
A Coke.
Did you guys see what happened in the Pistons-Oklahoma City game? Oklahoma City is going everywhere and beating everyone. And in the third quarter of the game against OKC, they got 5 technical fouls, and Cade Cunningham was ejected from that game where the Pistons were trying to show that they belong with the league's top team.
I saw that the Pistons coach, not
Bickerstaff,
not who Shaq thought it was I can't even remember which coach he thought
Chauncey
it was. Chauncey Billups, thank you. Not Chauncey Billups. Was very upset and was saying that the refereeing was very unfair, and I was curious if there was anything to that because I didn't watch the game.
Well, it wasn't unfair that was interesting about the criticism that he was levying. It was the level of disrespect he kept talking about, that he's insisting on behalf of his team. He's like saying, he's saying that it's above and beyond disrespectful for the Detroit Pistons. You saw that the Pistons Twitter account sent out after Shaq said he didn't know their players. They kept sending out tweets of Shaquille O'Neal being beaten by the Pistons in 2004, sitting on the bench next to Kobe, losing in 5 games. The Pistons are taking on the regional identity of a team that nobody is respecting correctly. It's one of the great sports cries that you get. And their coach, Bickerstaff, is saying, I'm not having here this level of disrespect where I'm going to stay silent and not protect my players while 5 technical fouls are being called and my star players being ejected at home. Come on. Like, that, we're not doing that one. We're not ejecting stars from big games at home because everyone's there to see the officials give out technical fouls. And the Pistons Cade Cunningham was cursing a lot.
I did see the Photoshop of Shane Gillis mashed up with Shea Gillis-Alexander.
Saw that one too.
I saw that. But that seems very entertaining and interesting, though.
Okay, you guys aren't interested at all. I can't get you interested in the Detroit Pistons no matter the angle that I try to take to get you interested in a fun and interesting basketball team.
I mean, I was interested. I also am interested in like the effect these green St. Patrick's Day goggles are giving me right now. This is what fish in the Chicago River must feel like on Saturday morning.
Yeah. That was at least. Is it just Formula One? Because Josh Berry and Wood Brothers won at the Pennzoil 400.
Get your own bit.
Put your hat on. Put your hat on.
I guess when American football ends, everyone just assumes the sporting calendar slows down. Yeah. This is a niche sport Lollapalooza. I mean, I was locked in on. I had to have 4 screens yesterday. There's so many things going on, so many events I want to be at. Say you're watching the NBA and you see Larry David and Stephen A. Smith touching wood, and you're like, I want to touch some wood. Well, let me tell you somebody that can help you touch that wood. Game Time. The Game Time app. Yeah, you could see what the courtside seats would look like. I'm sure it's not too hard to imagine, but you could also see what your seats look like from the 400 level or 300 level. Any seat in the house. You have panoramic seat views thanks to the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code Dan. Get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. You get last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed, and I swear by this app, this is what I use. One of my favorite bands is in town this weekend. I'm going to be using Game Time to get some pit tickets to watch Deftones.
College tournaments going.
So many things going on. Homestead's in town. Miami people, if you haven't used the promo code Dan to save yourself some cash, go ahead and do it. One of the things that didn't make my screen last night was White Lotus. I've kind of checked out on this.
Whoa, that's it?
No, I haven't watched a single one, nor have I shown any interest in watching it because everybody told me that the season started a little slower. I did watch last season, but I also joined in progress, and I was kind of waiting for word of mouth to get to a point where I wanted to take part in the social commentary and not miss out. And a lot of people feel strongly about White Lotus. I know we got a lot of fans here, so I'm not going to give anything away. But the show started yesterday, apparently, with a scene with 2 actors I hold in very high regard. I love Walton Goggins. But another actor, an Academy Award-winning actor, shared a scene with him, and he appears to be a full-fledged member of the cast now, and this was not announced. This was a surprise, and there was like 20 minutes of shared time to lead off this episode, and I think I may be in. How do you feel about surprise cast members?
It was a surprise cast appearance, and I don't want to give anything away.
Tell me.
Other than we already gave away that there is a surprise guest appearance. But if you know who the person is, you know anything about them, it makes total sense. Because of something about them that I cannot reveal without saying who the person is.
We're not going to spoil it. I believe the fairest criticism I've seen so far of White Lotus, wherever it is that you're saying slow, is they've had about 2 episodes worth of murder mystery they've tried to string out over 4 episodes, that there's just some fat in it that's unnecessary to make it hour-long, beautiful episodes of rich tourist landscape.
They could have really condensed some of the storyline. They added an episode this season because the first 2 seasons was like every day was an episode. And this season, this whole like lunar party or what full moon party, right? Yeah. They got its own episode, which is out of character. But they could have really like kind of like Jason Isaacs kind of know what is going on there. We didn't need to stretch that out over 4 episodes.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like we kind of need to see how it ends, right? To figure out like what details we're missing that's happening in these episodes that we're not thinking are that important until it kind of all gets wrapped together at the end, right?
I'm open-minded about it. The ending could make it all worthwhile. I agree with you. I'm very excited.
Is Jason Isaacs a good guy or a bad guy in this show?
He's a pill popper.
Well,
But is he a good guy or a bad guy? Because
Everyone sort of operates in the gray in White Lotus.
No, but he's a defrauder.
He's
It seems-
a person who's committed crimes, it appears.
That he wasn't really the driving force on, but was talked into, but still committed the crime.
We don't know a lot about him,
Yeah.
but I think you can deduce, like,
The world is closing in on him.
spiritually in his soul, or do you mean like his action? You know, like we could get deep about
It's
it.
someone who's done wrong that you seemingly are finding yourself possibly rooting for.
I could never root for Jason Isaacs. Just like there are certain roles that actors play that they are never going to break the stigma associated with that character.
Patriot.
I mean, dude is a metal stand scumbag. Just pure evil. Do you know how hard it is for me to watch a movie and you're like sharing scenes with Mel Gibson and I'm like, you're the asshole.
Is the word association for typecast George Costanza? Like, is there a better one than that? Just like someone that couldn't
Jason
work.
Alexander?
Oscar the Grouch.
Someone that couldn't work. That's true.
You want to read?
Cookie Monster.
You want to hear some Isaac's quotes here to bring the show full circle on what we were talking about at the beginning? Because
I found these quotes to be absurd,
right,
frankly.
so
Yes.
absurd, but also wonderful because he's getting backlash online. Because he shut down a question about wearing a prosthetic penis in the full frontal scene on CBS Mornings. Quote, a lot of people are debating it. It's all over the internet. He says he's not going to talk anymore about it. Quote, and it's interesting because the best actress this year is Mikey Madison at the Oscars, and I don't see anybody discussing her vulva, which was on the screen all the time. It's interesting that there's a double standard for men.
Okay. I don't even know where to begin because the nudity in Honora was one of the most hotly contested items of internet discourse for weeks after the Oscars. But also, you just did bring up her vulva, so now we are talking about it.
He kept going, but when women are naked, Margaret Qualley as well in The Substance, nobody would dream of talking to her about her genitalia, her nipples, or any of those things. So it's odd that there's a double standard. He's getting tired of being asked whether it was a prosthetic.
But it wasn't it?
Yes.
And
well, that's
most
where it
women
started.
don't wear prosthetics when they're nude in scenes. And also Hollywood has been making women be nude for a lot longer than we've had constant male nudity, which we talked about to start the show. I just find this whole thing very, very strange. Just stop.
I would think also strange, though, is just Goggins having to do that scene in front of his friends. Like, it's got all those scenes have to be hard to do they not?
You're worried about Walton, right? You don't want to call him Walter? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Walton.
I can't just use his last name?